What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Chris, and this is the Compendium Guide to Battlefield 4. For those of you who do not know what the Compendium is, it is a large collection of knowledge on a certain topic. So essentially you can see this as the ultimate resource for information on Battlefield 4. Now what I'm going to be doing is going over all the basics of the game, such as Battlelog, the different classes, and of course each of the vehicles, but all of these are going to be broken down to be as informative as possible, no matter how experienced you are with the series. Now I also have a resource page at the end of certain sections linking to guides that are already out there so that you can click on those and find out even more helpful tips and tricks. Now if you're new to Battlefield 4, this will be a nice one-stop shop to inform you about all the awesome little tricks that Battlefield veterans want you to know before going into this. Now if you're a veteran of the series, I think there's still at least a few helpful hints buried somewhere in here to help you along the way. Now the last thing I want to say before jumping in to the first section is you're looking at the table of contents, which is fully annotated. Just click on one of the annotations of the sections you want to see, and it'll take you there. If you ever want to come back to the screen, just click on the very top where it has its own annotation, and it'll take you back right here. Now please don't forget to show your support by subscribing to my channel. I do a bunch of other guides on Battlefield 4 and a ton of other fun and informative stuff. For all you new soldiers, I suggest clicking on the Battlelog section first, but go ahead and click on the section you want to see, and let's get started. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first section, which is on Battlelog, and this is the subsection on stats. So in this, I'm going to go ahead and just cover some of the most ambiguous stats that we have, and then I'm also going to cover the most basic stats that you guys can understand. You can go ahead and break down some of the other ones that are a little bit more obvious, and I don't feel like they're necessary to be explained, but let's go ahead and touch on what I feel like are the most necessary to be explained to you guys. So, for all of you Battlefield veterans out there, you probably only have one stat on your mind that you're hoping I have the answer for. And, well, you're in luck, because if you're thinking what I'm thinking, which I know you're thinking what I'm thinking, then I do. Okay, so you're probably thinking, can he tell me what skill is made up of? Oh my god, how do you get higher skill? Why is it that I can get into a match, be number one by like 2,000 points, and I still lose skill on a match? Well, I have the answer for you, okay? So skill is made up of three other factors. Now these three other factors I'm going to cover afterwards. So if you're new to shooters, if you're new to Battlefield, don't fret, I'll explain those in a second. But for all you Battlefield veterans, go ahead and listen up. So skill is made up of three other stats, three other factors that are weighed against each other because obviously their number ratios are not going to be exactly the same. All right, so 60% of your skill stat, 60% is made up of your score per minute, your SPM. Okay, 60%. 30% of your skill stat is going to be made up of your KPM, your kills per minute. That is 30%. And the last 10% is going to be made up of your KDR, your KD or your kill death ratio. Okay, so that is 60% for your skill per minute, 30% for your kills per minute, and 10% for your KDR. So if you happen to have your stat of skill drop after you had a fantastic game, it's probably because you're playing a different mode. You know, you're playing a game mode that has, you know, allows you to score a lot more points, like say, you know, playing on a small conquest map rather than just playing, you know, obliteration or something along those lines. That's going to help increase your score per minute, you know, playing on a conquest game. You know, your kills per minute goes down, which is 30% of your score, probably because you're not playing domination anymore. You're playing more of conquest where you don't run into enemies so often, okay? So that's going to explain why skill is there. It's going to reflect whatever mode or modes that you play most often. So it's going to be useful to a degree, but like all stats, it has its error rate. You know, well, I don't know what word you want to use for that, but anyways, it has its margin of error. There we go, perfect, right? Anyways, let's go ahead and move on to this, you know, in order then. So let's go ahead for score per minute. So SPM, or score per minute. This is a great way of judging the skill of a Battlefield player, but it obviously has its own margin of error as well. So skill, your score is something that you get for any activity you do in Battlefield. When you revive somebody, when you give somebody ammo, when you repair tank, when you capture a point, when you disable an enemy vehicle, when you destroy an enemy vehicle. When you do all these things, you gain points, you gain score. Okay, so this is going to judge, on average, your score divided by how many minutes you actually played. They have this for individual matches, and they also have it for your overall average for your profile. So that would be your SPM, your score per minute. Now, moving along, you have your KPM, or your kills per minute. Okay, so this is kind of self-explanatory. It's how many kills you can get in a minute. Again, this is very affected by game modes. When you play on, like, say, Domination, which I'm going to be explaining all the modes later, you're going to be on smaller maps. It's going to be a lot more frantic, and there's going to be a lot more killing going on than, say, you know, you playing Obliteration on a very wide map like Goldman Railway or something like that. All right, so then we have KDR, kill death ratio, which is the traditional way of judging the skill of people in shooting games. Now, Battlefield being still a traditional game in a sense when it comes to shooting, but it's also an objective-based game. It's also a team-based game, so KDR doesn't matter as much. I would rather say your score per minute is what matters, and then your squad score, which I'm going to touch on next. So again, KDR is kind of like the most self-explanatory one, in the sense of, like, it's just your kills, you know, divided by your deaths. So for every 2 kills I died once, that's my KDR. It's going to be 2-to-1 ratio, okay? So the last one I want to explain is something that I find is very intriguing when I try to judge the skill of people when it comes to how they're going to work with me, and that is the squad score, which you can find when you go into the details tab from their stat overview for any soldier, okay? So you can find that on the left-hand side, and it is your squad score. So, like I said before, with your score per minute, you gain score by doing certain things in the game, like reviving people and all that other stuff, but you gain bonus points, a little extra, just a little something extra, for helping out your specific squad. So, you revive a squad mate, you're going to gain more points than if you revived, you know, just a normal team member. If you heal a squad mate, you're going to get more points than if you, healed a normal team member. Okay, this is how it works. So, your squad score is going to total up all of that, and it's going to make it a little bit easier for you to judge how well this person works with, their squad, their compadres, the people they're supposed to work the most tight with. So that's going to be, just another way to judge. I think that between, all 4 of these stats, it's a decent way of judging how effective somebody is on the battlefield. Okay, and the last little quick thing I want to touch on is ranks. Okay, so rankings, just so you guys don't get confused, is the level system that they have in Battlefield. So your rank is going to be your level. This does not show skill. That is something I know a lot of Battlefield veterans want to stress to you new people out there. It does not show skill. It just shows time spent in the game and you being able to do stuff. So yes, there obviously, if you have more skill, if you're better at the game, then you are going to rank up faster. But that doesn't matter, okay? Because unless you're going to actually try to compare their time to what rank they are, it's not going to matter. It's just a matter of level. Someone's been playing this game. If someone's been playing this game for about a year, and they're only ranked 30, maybe they're really good at the game, but they have 3 children, so they can only play ever so often. So who knows? You don't judge that kind of stuff. So, anyways, let's go ahead and move on to the loadout section. Alrighty, so we are now in the loadout section of Battlelog. Now this is a nifty little tool that you can use, whether you're playing the game or not. You can actually change your loadout for each and every single one of your kits or classes, and you can also change out the different loadouts for all the vehicles that have upgrades and augmentations of some kind on there. So it's pretty self-explanatory in the sense of its layout. You obviously have, for each and every class, you have your primary weapon, and then underneath it, it'll show your 3 different attachments. You have your secondary weapon just below those attachments. You have your 2 gadgets for each and every one of their classes, and these again are going to be different based on the classes. You're going to have your type of grenade. You're going to have your melee weapon, which there are different ones. They all act the same, but they look different. And then you're going to have your field upgrade. So this is, again, something I'll explain later, but this is where you can change it. You notice at the very bottom that it says active kit or currently active kit, and what that means is that when you start a match, this will be the kit that you automatically click onto. So this will be the one that you automatically start with. So if you just want to instantaneously deploy, with a certain kit, that's how you do it. So all you have to do is click on that on either one of those and hit save right above the recon tab right there, and it'll set your active kit. Same thing is going to happen for all these vehicles, is that you can go ahead and change them up. It's going to have each vehicle labeled. It's going to show what they look like from the side, and then you're going to have 4 of whatever attachments they have for each vehicle. Now, they don't all have 4. I think most of them have 5, except for the air vehicles all have 4. So there are more attachments in there than it just shows, so go ahead and go in there and tinker around as you gain levels. But I'm going to go over all those attachments later. What I wanted to do here is I just want to go ahead and show the layout for all these different things. Hopefully that makes it a little bit easier when you go in through here, that you at least know what you're looking at and what you're touching on, before you go ahead and start tinkering around. But let's go ahead and show you a nifty little trick that they have called the test range. Alrighty, so there's a cool little feature that they implemented in Battlefield 4 to help get some new bearings for all those people as they unlock guns, as they unlock, new upgrades for vehicles and such. You can go into the test range, which is an area where you are completely alone by yourself, completely instance, and they have targets for you to shoot at for both planes and helicopters, as well as for trying out all the different little map pickups and all that other kind of stuff. So that's really cool. The way that you're going to go ahead and get to this is that you click on the very top left of your browser. You'll see it says Battlelog right above your soldier portrait, little mini soldier portrait there. You're going to go ahead and click on that, and you're going to be taken to the main screen of Battlefield. And right on top of where it has a loadout box and where it says the top story, you'll see a little box that says test range. It's also right next to where it says play campaign. Okay, so your test range, you're going to go ahead and click on that, and then you just hit play now right in the middle when it loads up the next screen. And it's going to load up an augmented version of Parasol Storm. Okay, and again, this is going to have a bunch of different stuff on it. So it's going to let you learn some of the basic controls and gameplay of Battlefield 4. It's also going to let you try out any weapons that you have unlocked, any gadgets you have unlocked, and all the vehicles that are available in Battlefield 4. Now, this doesn't count for some of the more obscure things like the AC-130 or the Bomber, but any vehicle that spawns at a point that you can go ahead and get into and drive around or fly around or what have you, that you're going to be able to try out here. And it's going to allow you to hopefully refine your skill with all these kits and just kind of try different things out and see how they function. It's going to allow you to be able to illustrate points with friends a little bit better and stuff like that. So that's a cool little feature they have in the test range. But now let's get into what really matters, which is the server browser and how to find a match. Alrighty, so this section we're going to go ahead and look at how to use the server browser, which is probably arguably one of the most important points to be explained to new people to Battlefield, to find multiplayer matches, which again, Battlefield is basically a multiplayer game. The campaign was only added on in Battlefield 3, which is an argument for another point from hardcore Battlefield veterans like myself. Anyways, let's get into the server browser. To find the server browser, go ahead and click the multiplayer tab at the very top. And then to get to the filter, you're going to go ahead and click on, basically there's a little gray bar underneath where it says recommended servers. And on the right hand side of that, you'll see a little drop down arrow that points downward, and it's going to be a little refresh button. Just click on that downward menu, and there's a big menu pops up. And it's going to have a bunch of different boxes in it. I'm going to go ahead and break all that down for you guys so you kind of have, a little bit better of understanding. A little bit better of an understanding about this stuff. So some of this is really self-explanatory, so I'm going to try to rush right through just because it's a lot of information to cover, and there's only really one thing I want to touch on for a little while to explain to people. But let's go and get right into it. So the first section, we have all the different maps, which you can check the boxes for the specific maps if you want to, or if you want all of them, just go ahead and check the big checkbox next to where it says Battlefield 4 or China Rising Array, the other DLC that ends up coming out if you own it. And you'll go ahead and have all the maps from that DLC checked. So those are going to be the maps that you want to play on, not the maps that you don't want to play on. So make sure you know that. These will be the maps that you do want to play on, okay? Then we have mode, which I'm going to go ahead and explain all these game modes later on. So don't worry about that. You can go ahead and check out that section. But this is where you're going to go ahead and choose which mode you want. Again, if you check it, then you want to play it. Free slots is going to be how many empty slots a server has. So if I'm looking for a server that has 1 to 5 open slots, then I'm going to click the 1 to 5 open or 1 to 5 checkbox. Okay, pretty self-explanatory, pretty awesome. If you really want to play as a commander, which I can't blame some people because there is a little bit of fun factor to have to it, or you just want to spectate on people, you also have a checkbox there. Now moving on, we have game size, which is the total game size. Okay, so when you're looking for a server, so if you're looking for a 64-man server, then you're going to click the 64-man. That does not mean that each team size is 64 people. That means that each side is 32 people and the entire game is 64. Okay, so don't want anyone to get mixed up there. Okay. So next up we have the official, ranked, unranked, and private. Now these are a little bit more complicated, but again, still not super complicated. This is where you can choose the different kinds of basic servers that you have. So we have the official and ranked, which the official means that these are kind of like the ones that are supported by DICE and stuff like that. You have ranked, which basically means that these are following by the traditional default rule sets that DICE has given out and aren't augmented very heavily. Okay, so these are going to be ones that they are obviously still going to apply to your score, your stats, and all that stuff like that, but they're going to play along the lines of like a traditional way that DICE wants you to play the game. Unranked is going to be things like, you know, servers that only let you play with your pistol, or only let you play with your pistol and knife, and punish you or ban you if you do things otherwise. So again, that's where you're going to find that is in the unranked section, which is very effective when you're trying to upgrade your pistols, is to just go to a pistol-only server. I'm not saying I support it, but it definitely worked. Anyways, private servers are going to be ones that have password protection, or that would normally be hidden off of things. Again, that's not a default to look for private servers, but I know for some people, if you're trying to join like a clan, or I used to play Dodds, and I joined a regiment that had, you know, or a company, or whatever they wanted to call themselves, and they had their own private training server, their own private like map where you would follow them out and stuff like that, and that had their own password. So if I was trying to find that server here in Battlefield 4, if they had that, then I would click that private box. Okay. So moving on, we have the presets, and this is where it's going to get a little bit more long-winded when I start talking about hardcore. Okay. So we have normal, which is your normal game, and then we have hardcore, which I'll get back to in a second. We have infantry only, which basically means no vehicles. I'm not exactly sure because I've only played this twice, and it happened to be on Operation Locker, which has no vehicles in it anyways. But I'm pretty sure it means that there are jeeps and stuff like that, but there's no actual tanks and LAVs and stuff like that. I could be completely wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong in the comment section below. If you want to go ahead and message to me, I'll create an annotation right here to make sure people have the accurate information. And of course, you have custom, which I don't even fiddle with, but yeah, it's just another way to figure out, you know, all your different, you know, kind of game modes that you want to get into. But let's go back to hardcore. So hardcore is really something I've been getting into lately, but it adjusts quite a lot of things and still has its own issues. So I would suggest playing the normal game for quite a while to get into the game if you're new at it, and then try out hardcore later on. So it's a nice little change of pace. But what hardcore does is it limits your HUD. So that means there's no health bar, no grenade counter, no ammunition counter, there's no third person in vehicles, no crosshairs, stuff like that. There usually would be no fire mode display, so if you change your gun from burst fire to single fire to back to automatic fire, usually won't have that. Some servers will still allow for that, okay? It's also going to use blood splatters to indicate your health loss. Because there is no health regen naturally in the game, there's also no natural vehicle regeneration like happens in normal. Now you can still gain health back on these things by using med packs to gain your own health back, or to use the torch on the engineer class. Again, I'm going to go into all those gadgets later on to help fix vehicles. So it's still going to exist. They're still going to be able to do it. It's just not going to be natural. It's not going to happen. That's just going to happen over time. After a certain amount of time has passed, you're just going to start gaining health back. It's not how it's going to work in hardcore. You're also usually not going to have your minimap, but some servers have allowed for minimaps. That's something that you can do ranked or unranked. That's one of the options that they can change without it, changing it being ranked to unranked. It's only going to have spotting that shows up on the minimap. There's no 3D spotting. So if you're new to Battlefield, what 3D spotting is when, if you're playing on the PC, if you hit Q, you would spot somebody. So your guy will point at them, and the enemy will show up on the minimap. But 3D spotting is where it puts a little triangle over their head. A lot of us Battlefield veterans like to call them Doritos as a joke, because they look, obviously like the cheesy Doritos. And if they go behind a building, they go behind a mountain, what have you, you can still see this icon through things, so you can still track them. You're not going to have that in hardcore. You're not going to have any of that 3D spotting that you would normally have in softcore or normal. You're also going to have 60% of the health that you would normally have. This can also be adjusted without getting rid of the ranked, unranked modifier there. So 60% is the usual, but you're still going to be dealing the exact same amount of damage, so death is going to come a lot quicker in hardcore, which is probably the biggest point of hardcore, is being able to, when you get the drop on somebody, really get the drop you deserve. So a lot of times in the normal mode, I can get the drop on like 3 people, but because it takes so much damage to get, you know, 1 or 2 people down, sometimes that third person or the 2 other people will turn around and kill me before I can kill them, even though I'm right behind them. So this happens a fair amount less in hardcore because of the fact that you have such an advantage of how much rounds it actually takes to kill somebody. One of the other big things is friendly fire is on, okay? So friendly fire is on in the game, so shooting your allies will kill them, so be careful of that, especially when you're throwing grenades, okay? And then one of the other things I want to mention is that maintenance is a vehicle unlock. That actually does not work in hardcore, okay? So maintenance, I'm going to go over all the vehicle unlocks later, but maintenance is going to help you with not only starting the process of regenning quicker, it's going to start that process sooner, but it's also going to help you when you're regenning to regen faster. Okay, so that does not work at all because there is no, again, just passive regen. And the last thing is that if you're in a squad, your squad leader is the only person that you can spawn on. In normal mode, you can spawn on any of your other squad mates to use them as like a spawn point, but in hardcore, you can only use your squad leader. Now, if you are the squad leader, then you can spawn on all of your squad mates, but their squad mates can only spawn on you. So it's really imperative that you try to lead people like that, okay? So that's going to be how hardcore works and how all the different modes work, okay? So let's go ahead and move on to extras. Now, extras is going to be a kind of an interesting box because it has not just a checkbox, but it also has an Xbox. So if you, not the Xbox One or the Xbone or whatever, but if you click the checkbox again, you'll notice that it turns red and has a little X in it, and that means that you don't want that. So when you look at map rotation, game mode rotation, and password protection, those are all pretty self-explanatory. It's that it rotates to the maps or it rotates to the different game modes. Like, you know, one server has Conquest and Obliteration and Rush all on the same server. And if you're like me and you just want to play Conquest and you're on a really good server and you want to keep it that way, then you really don't want to have to worry about it changing. Then I usually exit out, and so I only go on servers where the game mode stays consistent. So that's what you can do there. And if you leave them unchecked, then you'll get a mixture of both. Moving on, we're going to go ahead and look at the region box. Now, regions, this is talking about where the server is located at, not where you're located at, although that could kind of be the same in the sense of what you want to try to do is try to choose servers that are as close as possible to you because you'll get the better ping. If you don't know what ping is, it's just a simple little way of understanding your latency or your connection to the server, to your computer, and vice versa. And so you want your ping to be as low as possible. You ideally would want it somewhere between like 50 and 0. Okay, anything over 50 I really wouldn't suggest for a game like Battlefield. You can get away with it sometimes, but again, I would probably try to stay in like the 50-ish range. Moving on, we also have the advanced, which is just a culmination of all the different things we talked about, like only being able to spawn on your squad leader and having vehicles in the game and yada yada yada. So this is just a collection of some of the rules that you can use. One of the last things, or one of the things that I haven't touched on that is in there is team balance. And the team balance is basically when a server is lopsided, so say there's 20 guys on one side and 10 guys on the other, if the server will automatically try to even things out and put an equal amount of people on each side. So that's something that you can choose to like or dislike. I mean, it can break up squads sometimes and that kind of stuff, which is kind of a pain in the butt, but it's still there. And it so if you like it, check it. If you don't, keep it unchecked and it'll be fine. So the last two boxes are player settings and rules. I really don't find that there's much need to use any of these unless you're looking for a very specific server. So if you are, the things there are pretty self-explanatory to go ahead and just figure out, you know, if you like the amount of time that it takes for somebody to be kicked off of a server for being idle and that kind of stuff. So go ahead and use those boxes if you'd like. If you're new to the game, I highly suggest you just go ahead and just leave everything there completely unchecked and just don't bother with it. But that kind of sums up everything about the server browser. Now let's go ahead and look at assignments. Alrighty, so now we're going to go ahead and talk about the assignments section in Battlefield 4's Battlelog. So to get to this, you can see it up on the very top underneath your name. It's going to say overview, stats, yada yada yada. Right next to loadout, it'll say assignment, so go ahead and click on that. So what we're looking at here is you basically have 3 different levels of assignments. And these are going to be added to as DLC comes out. So I'm going to just talk about the original ones because it's going to make things a little bit easier. you're going to have bronze, silver, and gold assignments. And basically what these are kind of like little things that kind of just pop up from time to time as you complete like a random checklist. So, you know, like gain a certain amount of assault rifle kills, do a certain amount of heals, do a certain amount of vehicle repairs, get a certain amount of kills in a tank, stuff like that. And they have these little checklists, and once you complete them, you get things like dog tags and stuff like that. So the bronze tier assignments are always going to reward you with dog tags, but the first one in China expansion rewards you with guns and gadgets, so that's something to keep in mind. With silver, they're going to reward you with camos, and they're going to reward you with dog tags as well. And then again, the expansion of China Rising is going to reward you with guns, but we'll see how the other DLCs work as well. The third one is going to be gold, and those assignments will reward you with guns and dog tags, so instead of camos, and the expansions are going to reward you with dog tags. So it's a little bit flipped on its head as things go on, which is kind of a nice change of pace as you get new DLC to kind of have different expectations of what you're going to gain. There's also a couple of them in here, which is single player. You're going to gain some of these through single player. Now, I know a couple of you guys want to know how to gain all the different unlocks through single player. So there are different levels in the single player. If you do the Tombstone Actual one, then you complete the Baku, or what do you want to say, BAKU mission. You will unlock the M412 Rex. If you complete the Kunlun Mountains, or however you want to say that, you will unlock the Shank Knife. If you complete Tashgar, then you're going to unlock the Machete Knife. And then the very end of the single player, you are going to have 3 different guns you can unlock based on the 3 different choices you can make, as they call it, the ultimate sacrifice. So, you know, I hate it if I'm spoiling some stuff for you guys to a certain extent, but you know what? This is also a guide on how to get everything in the game. So I'm going to go ahead and say, if you don't want to hear the spoiler, go and skip on to the next section. But for all of you who want to unlock all the awesome stuff, if you want to unlock the QBZ-95-1, then go ahead and sacrifice the Valkyrie. If you want to unlock the M249, then go ahead and sacrifice Irish. And if you want to unlock the P90, go ahead and sacrifice Hannah. Okay, so that's going to be how you get all those different guns through the single player using your assignments, okay? So that's all I really have to go over assignments. There's so many different assignments. You guys can go ahead and look at the individual ones and see which ones you want to try to gain and work on them. I don't really need to go over them too much for you guys, but let's go ahead and move on into the next section where we talk about awards. Alright, so here we are in the awards section. Now this is a rather small section, so I'm not going to be here for too long. But basically what this is a collection of ribbons and medals you gain by doing certain small tasks throughout the game. So you get ribbons for repairing people, for reviving people, for capping points, for disabling people, all that kind of stuff. And as you gain ribbons, you will eventually gain medals. So it takes 50 of these ribbons to gain medals. Now, each ribbon is different. So some of them, it's like, you know, capture 20 points and you'll gain a conquest capture ribbon, right? And so then if you gain 50 conquest capture ribbons, then you'll gain a medal. Okay, so stuff like that. But they're not completely uniform, but they're all there. So, but what is uniform is that for every single one of the medals, you have to gain 50 ribbons, okay? So if you're looking to gain a medal, then you need at least 50 ribbons. The only exception so far is that for the bomber medal, you only need 20 ribbons. So that's that. But that only comes with the China Rising DLC. So this is just basically a little nice collection of all your performances throughout the game. Just kind of nice little competition thing you could do, especially if you're looking for the MVP ribbons or the MVP medals and kind of comparing with your friends to see who's the better, most valuable player out there. So let's go ahead and move on to a tab that not a whole lot of people know about, which is the Missions tab. Alright, here in the Missions tab, which you can find almost directly underneath where it says Battlefield 4 in the middle of your browser, just to the left of leaderboards, just to the right of the Campaign tab, you'll find it there. And what missions are basically you can create little mini challenges that go on throughout the game, throughout multiplayer, with your friends. So basically you can say, you know, when you click on it, you create a new challenge, and you can select from a bunch of different missions. You can select from a bunch of different maps, how many attempts people can have, and then of course invite the specific friends that you want to play in this mission. So basically, so I can say I want to see who's the best assault on Hainan Resort, right, or Siege of Shanghai. And you only get one chance of doing it. So I'm gonna go ahead and click Best Assault, Hainan Resort, and then you only get one attempt. You can only do once. So when you play, you better play good. And then I'm gonna invite my 3 closest friends because I think that we've had enough shit talking about who's gonna be the best assault player out there, and let's go ahead and figure this out. So you're gonna go ahead and do that. And you're gonna create a mission. And what is kind of cool about this, but also kind of silly, based on how much you have to do of this, is that if you do enough of these, you start unlocking certain dog tags, which is kind of cool. So it kind of incentivizes you to do them. It's a really small off-to-side system. I actually haven't even, we've barely touched on it, but there's really not a whole lot of point in using it unless you want those specific dog tags. And it's kind of ridiculous. I think most of them you have to get like 20 wins for each of the dog tags. So that's kind of a lot for like who's the best assault on any of these maps 20 times. It's kind of a lot to try to ask for a dog tag, but hey, such is life. So if you guys are interested in getting any of those, expanding your dog tag collection, you can find them here. It's also a nice competitive way to keep things going between you and your friends. But let's go ahead and touch on probably one of the other big confusing things for even some Battlefield veterans out there, which is the Battlepack system. Alrighty, so we're going to go ahead and look at the Battlepack screen here. So Battlepacks is the new way that they are rewarding you as you level up. Not only your actual rank, but also eventually with your weapons as well as you use them to try to give you attachments and stuff like that. So battle packs are packs of attachments, camos, logos, avatars, XP boosts, knives, or dog tags. Okay, so each one of these packs drop a particular amount of items. Okay, so there's 3 different kinds of battle packs. You have bronze battle packs, which drop 3 items. You have silver battle packs, which drop 4 items, and gold battle packs, which drop 5 items. Ooh, 5. Weapons battle packs are going to be dropped specifically after using a weapon past a certain point. I think most of them start about 100 kills, somewhere around there, 100, 120 kills. So if you stick with one gun that you really like, you're going to get a weapons battle pack. Weapons battle packs drop 4 items, and these are either attachments for that particular weapon, camos for that particular weapon, or just a general XP boost. So you'll get them after getting kills again, and then of course you will also unlock some of less than normal attachments. Now, these attachments that only come through weapon battle packs are basically just aesthetic changes to the ones that you can already unlock before you get to the battle pack. So if you're looking for functionality reason, you never have to worry about having to wait on a random battle pack to be able to get a certain attachment. It's just going to look different. It's going to be, for anybody who actually knows, which is going to be, for the eagle eye out there, you can know, oh, he's used that gun a lot, but that's not a real big point. For anybody who's a veteran of the Battlefield series, they will get their own specific veteran battle pack. So what we know is in the veteran battle pack is that you get some dog tags that are based on the franchise, the ACB 90 knife, the Splinter camo, the 44 Magnum scoped, and then 100% XP boost. Okay, so those all come from the veteran battle packs. Though we don't know how you gain veterans battle packs. Okay, so that's a little frustrating to say the least. But it should be noted that bronze, silver, and gold battle packs all drop any item. So obviously gold ones are going to drop or have a higher chance of dropping rare items such as certain dog tags, or the hard to find 200% XP boost. But bronze and silvers can drop them as well. It's just going to be at a lower rate of drop. You'll also start getting battle packs at 3, but I'm going to go ahead and take a step back and explain exactly how these tiers work. Right, so the tiers on all of these battle packs work like this. From 3, you start gaining battle packs, and from now on you will receive a battle pack every 2 levels until your 10th level. So those are all odd numbers. That's 3, 5, 7, and excluding 9. So it's going to go 3, 5, 7, 10. Okay, from 10 onwards, you get a battle pack every even number level. So it's going to go 3, 5, 7, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, yada, yada, yada. So, but in each 10 levels, so 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, you're going to gain a gold battle pack instead of the normal tiered battle pack. Okay, so at level 10 you'll get a gold, 20 you'll get a gold, 30 you'll get a gold. Okay, but each one of these ranks or levels is set up in a tier. So between levels 3 and 20, you will gain bronze battle pack. So when you are any level besides 10 and 20, in between 3 and 20, you will gain bronze battle packs. When you are 22 to 40, you will gain all silver, except for, again, the teens, so 30 and 40. And when you are 40 plus, so that will be 42, 44, 46, you will gain gold every even number level. Okay, so once I hit 40, then every other level I'm going to gain a gold battle pack. But once I hit 50, you get a gold battle pack each and every level. Okay, so once you get about halfway through the leveling system, roughly so at least, you start getting gold battle packs for each one, so it starts to really ramp up. So once you invest your time in the game and really start to know things, even though it takes a while to rank up, you're still going to be getting, you know, a lot of sweet unlocks. So it's going to be there to kind of help reinforce you to keep playing along. And it's also really important to note that battle packs will never repeat any specific unlocks. The only thing that they're going to repeat is any XP boost. You're not going to have to worry about them repeating camos or attachments or what have you. Those are always going to be just one-time unlocks, so you never have to worry about that. So I hope that helps straighten out any of your issues with the battle packs and gives you a better understanding of how to look at them. But let's go ahead and look at the different game modes that come in Battlefield 4. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and talk about the game modes here in Battlefield 4. So we have a rather wide selection, and only one of the game modes hasn't released as of yet, and that is Capture the Flag. That should be coming with the next expansion pack. But with China Rising, they added one more, which is Air Superiority, but I'm going to go ahead and go down the list now. So first, I have Conquest and Conquest Large, and what you should know first is Conquest in general is that you are on one of two teams and you are fighting over a varied amount of control points. So basically you want to control, you know, like the area around the docks and the area around like the loading yard and the area around the nearby city and stuff like that. And so basically just by being on these points, they will capture. The more allies you have there, the faster they will capture for your team. And if there's enemies there, then it'll slow things down or even stop it. If it's just you on the point and one enemy on the point, then the point won't capture in anyone's favor. It'll just say they're stalemate till one of you guys leaves or one of you dies or a teammate comes onto the point. So, but then what ends up happening is as you capture these points, you have a set amount of tickets, which is adjustable based on the server you're playing on. And so as you gain these points, if you have more of these control points than your enemies, then they lose tickets, and vice versa. So if you only have one control point and your enemy has 4, then your team is going to be losing tickets. So say you start with 1,000 tickets, then each one of these is going to slowly start ticking down on your tickets, whoever has the majority. Now, one of the other things to be noted is that when you die in Conquest, and respawn, to note it is when you respawn, it takes a ticket away from your team. So if you are in a very close match where you're down to like 10 tickets and you die, do not respawn, because you are going to cost your team that ticket, and it could come down to it, and it could help your win-loss ratio. So that's what Conquest is in a nutshell, is basically fighting over these control points. Is by far the most popular and what Battlefield is known for. And the only difference between Conquest Large and Conquest, or Conquest Small, is the size of the map. So say a Conquest Large map would normally, which would be the normal size map, would have like say 7 control points, and maybe a Conquest Small would have like 4 or 5 control points instead. So, and then maybe like limit some of the aircraft or the land vehicles that are available there, because it's meant for like a smaller server. So next up we have Obliteration, and Obliteration is kind of a cool mode. Basically, you again have 2 different teams, and each team has 3 MCOM sites, or basically sites where the enemy wants to try to plant a bomb, and the bomb is randomly spawned somewhere in between the spawn points of both teams. And so each team is fighting to get the bomb and then bring it to the enemy's MCOM centers, so they're places where they don't want it to be detonated, and that's exactly basically how it plays out. And this can be really difficult on large servers, but it is very rewarding when you actually get done. It takes a lot of team play to really bust through a lot of enemy defense to be able to plant this. If only one MCOM is destroyed on one side, and then the rest of the other ones are completely defended on the other side. Even though there's 3, if the time runs out, then the team that was able to successfully blow up one of the enemy MCOMs wins. So you don't have to get all 3 to actually get the victory. You just have to at least get 1, otherwise it will result in a tie. The next 2 up are relatively simple. You have Team Deathmatch and Squad Deathmatch. So Team Deathmatch is your simple bread and butter. 2 teams on each side. You have a bunch of respawn tickets, and you guys just go at it and try to kill each other. It's basic team deathmatch that you get in any other shooter. Team to lose the tickets first loses. Squad deathmatch is basically the same thing, except for you are set up in squads. And I've played on servers where it was just squad, just one squad against one squad. I played on other ones where it was like there's 4 different squads and we're all going against each other. So it's a little bit more of a team-oriented focus, because you want to work together. This is also really fun on like hardcore when you make it where you only have 1 death and stuff like that. So there's some interesting game modes there, but those 2 are probably the least popular because Battlefield is known for being an objective-based game. Next up, we have Domination. Domination is kind of a mixture of Team Deathmatch. It's on a smaller map, like a lot of Team Deathmatch and Squad Deathmatch. Those are on smaller maps. Domination is also on smaller versions of each map, and you basically have several, usually like 3, but sometimes like 4 or 5 control points that are quickly exchanging hands that take maybe a matter of like 3 or 4 seconds to go from completely captured to neutralize, and then another like 3 or 4 seconds to go to fully captured. So they flip really quickly compared to a lot of the flags in like Control and stuff like that. So, or sorry, in Conquest. So yeah, it's a very fast-moving game, and tickets go very quickly. Again, if you hold more points, you're going to drain the enemy tickets. First to 0 loses. Next up, we have Rush, which is probably the other quintessential Battlefield game mode. And basically what you have is you have a team that's attacking and a team that's defending. And the attacking team, you start off with 2 objectives, and they are basically, again, these MCOM sites, which are basically just kind of like stand-up computers. And you're trying to plant a bomb, and everyone has the bomb, so you just have to get to the site and then hold down your action button, and you will plant the bomb. And then there will be, a big siren will sound, and woo woo woo, and all that stuff, and it'll pull in defenders, and they have to try to now push you guys back and disarm the site. So there's multiple stages of this. So there's 2 MCOMs per stage, and some maps have 3 stages, and some maps have 4. I think there's even one that has 5, but I could be wrong on that. So basically, the attacking team constantly does this, and they have a certain amount of tickets. So the defending team is basically just trying to use up all of the respawn tickets of the attacking team. So that is the basic way that how that works in Rush. Is basically, as you're defending, you're just trying to just kill as many of the enemies as quickly as possible and not let them plant a bomb. So Defuse is actually a relatively interesting game type. It pits 2 squads of 5 players as either attacker or defenders, and you only get 1 spawn each. So basically, it's these are on very small maps, and you're going to be put into a series of 6 rounds. Whoever wins the most rounds out of these 6 rounds wins. And basically, it's kind of like Rush, except for, again, it's smaller. They're on smaller maps, and you only have like I think about 5 or 6 players on each side. And you only have 1 life. So once you're dead unless someone revives you, and you can only be revived once. In Rush, if you are the only difference when it comes to planting the bomb in Rush, if you are defusing a bomb when it's about to go off, then it will not go off as long as you're in the process of defusing it. In Defuse, it will go off. So if you're too late to that MCOM after killing all the enemies, that bomb is planted and you do not do it before it's supposed to be triggered, then it'll go off, and then the opposing team will win. So there's that to be noted. And the last one is the one I mentioned first, ironically, is air superiority, which basically is a conquest version of Conquest that is only in the air. So basically, you have a certain spawn point, either an aircraft carrier or an airfield or something like that. And usually it's with jets, but sometimes they have helicopters. I know there's a map in China Rising that is only helicopters, I believe. And you're basically fighting over big control points in the air, and they have a very wide radius, obviously, because in jets you can just slowly, just keep spinning around, so like that. So they have a very wide radius. And so yeah, so that's the game mode is basically playing Conquest in the air. There's a limited amount of vehicles, so on some larger servers, you're not always going to be able to instantaneously get into an air vehicle and get back into the fight. And again, it works the exact same way. First team to lose their respawn tickets, whether it's based, from kills and also from not controlling enough the control points. The one to get to 0 loses. So those are the basic game modes that have come out. There's going to be Capture the Flag coming out. I think that one's pretty self-explanatory. You're going to try to go ahead and capture the enemy's flag and bring it back to your base. Pretty self-explanatory. I think we've been playing this since freaking Quake back in the day. So if anyone doesn't know that, you can, you still need more information on it. You can Google that. It was pretty obvious. So, but anyways, I go ahead and wrap up the game modes. We're going to move on to the last section of Battlelog, where I discuss what you gain when you sign up with Premium. Alright, last up we're going to go ahead and talk about what you gain if you get Premium in Battlefield. So I want to go ahead and make this abundantly clear. I haven't been paid by EA or DICE or anyone that's affiliated with them to try to convince you to buy it or not. I'm just going to give you the plain facts. You guys can make up your mind. This is not just another promo for them. I promise you. I just want to make sure you guys have all the information you could want on Premium. And so I found as much as I possibly could about it and what exactly you gain. So with Premium, you pay $50 and you gain access to all the expansion packs of Battlefield 4, and the expansion packs normally would be $15 each. So if you actually want all the expansion packs, then you would be saving a bundle of money. I think that ends up being about 2.5 that are completely free and paying just about half the price that you would normally. 2 weeks early access to all the DLC content, so you're basically paying, again, you're going to be upping to a premium account, so you're going to be getting early access to all these new things. Should be noted, I believe it's the Xbox gets even earlier access to this DLC, so anybody who buys Premium on Xbox, I'm pretty sure it's Xbox One or Xbox 360, will have access to this earlier. That's a whole nother discussion in and of itself, so I'll let you guys kind of debate that in the comments if you'd like to. The next one is it unlocks membership transfer. So if you already have a soldier that is currently on the old generation platform, so basically Xbox 360 and PS3, then if you buy Premium, you don't have to worry about paying to transfer your soldier to the next gen platforms. So, because that does come into play, because they do have differences in like how the game actually works and stuff like that. So basically, it's going to allow you to do that completely for free. So if you like if you end up playing on current gen consoles and you like it and you want to keep playing it for the next year and get all the expansion packs as they come out, and you are planning on getting a new console within the next year, this could be a good buy for you. But again, that's up to you and your position in life. The next one is that you also gain priority position in server queues. Can tell you how many times that since I don't have Premium, I have been skipped over in server queues. Two of my friends did it on me last night. But yeah, so you basically get put to the front of the line in front of anybody else who is not Premium. You get more layers and decals for your emblem, so it allows you to be able to do even more customizing with your emblem, which they have a bunch of different stuff like that. That you eventually can unlock to make your guy even more customizable. And then you get the Premium Calendar, which unlocks Premium-only XP events, different skins, portraits, paints, knives, and battle packs on a time frame. So basically you get like 3 to 4 of these items a month. They're just going to be kind of given to you, or you like get an event that allow you to earn them and stuff like that. So that's exactly what the Premium Calendar is, and that's everything you gain with Premium. So it's not a bad buy in my opinion. I just haven't bought it yet because, to be frank, I've been buying a bunch of other stuff for myself, and getting expansion packs that I won't be able to play for months is not really on my to-buy list around Christmas time. So I'll probably be getting it sometime afterwards for myself because I'll be playing this for a very long time. But make your own choice. Now you know all the information. But let's go ahead and move on to the next section in general. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and jump right on into Section 2, which is going to be on classes and just kind of a general overview of all the different classes and how to play the game and that kind of stuff. So the first little subsection here, though, is going to be on controls. Now, the game is relatively straightforward, and again, you can always just open up the game if you own it, of course, and look at any of the key bindings and stuff like that. So I figured you can kind of look at the individual controls. Of course, again, it's going to be shoot with the left mouse click, and then aim down your sights with your right mouse click, and then you know, you can keybind pretty much everything else. Those are basically the standards: WASD, all the kind of usual stuff. The other two keys that I want to point out that are kind of major, just in case you guys don't want to go ahead and jump right in, is E is how you use things. You use you know, trigger activation pads and stuff like that when it comes to you know, putting up like the road spikes and stuff like that, and also how you get into vehicles. A little hint there: just hold down the E button rather than tapping on it to try to get into vehicles. You'll get into it a lot faster because you'll get into it as soon as you're able to. And the other, probably even more major button in the sense of what you can do for your team, is the Q button. The Q button is a standard button. Again, you can always keybind these to different things, and the Q button is going to be what spots the enemies. Now, this is something you want to turn into a bit of a tick, just a natural tick, that anytime that you see an enemy on the screen, you want to hit that Q button. This is probably in the top 5, if not the top 3, if not the #1 point that almost any Battlefield veteran wants you to get across, is spot the shit out of the enemy. Alright, so it's probably up there with play the objective, but I'm going to get to those points later. So again, when it comes to controls, is make sure to use that Q button to spot. Again, you can always go into your main menu by hitting escape and getting into there to adjust them. Some of the confusing settings, though, I did want to touch on. When it comes to depth of field, that is basically how far out you can see. A lot of people who've been playing games for a while probably already know what this is. But if you are somebody who wants to play a sniper, or even just the fact that you want to see people coming at you as far as you can, depth of field is one of those. It's going to basically make it to where your computer is going to have to work harder to project enemies and like that out there. So if you have a lot more enemies on the screen at farther depth of field, it's going to have to run a little bit farther. But that is one of the things I just never sacrifice. I always put my depth of field on any game that gives me the option, any game, at max, because it can seriously affect your performance. You never want to have it to where you can't see that sniper because he's just right outside your depth of field and he can just pop you one. So one of the other things that I wanted to make sure to point out is that in Battlefield 4 you have voice communication built into the game. So if you're like a lot of Battlefield veterans, you probably already use things like Skype or Vent or TeamSpeak or Mumble. I'm sure there's other ones out there that people use, but those are probably the top 4 that are most popular. But you can actually use in-game voice chat. You are talking specifically with your squad, and I think there's also another button and options to where you can talk to your entire team, but I'm pretty sure the usual stuff is just for your squad. I use it every now and again, but for the most part, because I usually have a full squad when most of my friends are, or when all my friends are playing, then I usually just turn mine off. But you can use that. And the other thing is, I really want to incentivize you guys to try to use the text chat in the game to communicate things as much as possible. It's always, again, to have the basic courtesy of saying thank you and stuff like that. So there's going to be, we're going to talk about ease of communications with the comma rows later, but for now, just know that if you hit J, K, or L, you will open up the different kind of chat boxes based on all, team, or squad. So it goes J, K, L, all, team, or squad. So if you're looking for those basic controls, there they are. But let's go ahead and jump right on into some basic overviews on all the classes. Alright, so now we are going to go ahead and talk about classes. So this is going to be its own subsection now, but we're going to go ahead and, before we talk about the individual classes, let's talk about class synergy. And if you don't know what synergy means, it basically, in a nutshell, for my purposes here, is going to be talking about working together and how the different classes are meant to kind of work with one another, whether it's within a squad or within a team, to achieve objectives, to get kills, that kind of stuff. So the first thing I want to point out is the idea of soft lam. So soft lam is basically a lock-on system that the recons gain access to. And what they do is they basically aim down a set of binoculars that allow them to lock on to enemy vehicles, so like a tank or a helicopter or even a plane, stuff like that. And once they lock on, they have to hold the lock on by staring at the enemy. So if they have a nice vantage point, which is again part of what recon is notorious for doing, I should say, is, you know, sitting off to the side. If you want to be more helpful for your team, you can use soft lam from time to time and lock onto those pesky vehicles that just keep getting out of the way of the grunts on the ground. And so You can't actually fire a rocket as a recon, but what you can do is the engineer that has a rocket launcher with lock-on capabilities can instead now lock onto that signal. So they can see that lock-on through buildings, through mountains, through everything. It doesn't matter. What ends up happening is they just lock onto that square that has now showed up on their screen, and when they lock onto it, the rocket, instead of just going straight towards the target, is going to go flying straight. It's going to go out a ways in front of it. It's going to fly straight up into the air from there. Just take a 90-degree turn, fly straight up. Going to fly towards the target and come straight down on it. So this is a nice way for those pesky helicopters, those tanks that keep getting around like that, to attack them. But it also, on top of that, you deal more damage, and as the recon, you gain points as if you were helping to destroy it. You get the same points that you would if you were an engineer destroying it, and the engineer gets the same points for actually being the one to destroy it. So because you work together, you get the same amount of points. It's actually pretty awesome. You also get the spotting bonus, so technically you make more points than the engineer actually blew it up. One of the other things is that certain classes have certain abilities. So if you look at the defibs, or the defibrillators that can revive people on the assault class, it kind of, assaults are a little bit of like a medic class, but they're also very offensive with their assault rifles. But they have defibrillators, so basically when an ally dies, whether it's a squad mate or a team member, you have a little circle that has basically the EKG signal. That's what it was. I almost forgot. The EKG signal, or sign, in a little circle there, basically meaning that you can hit them with the defibrillators and you'll bring them back to life. We'll go into tips about how to use defibrillators better later, but basically they'll bring them back to life and they'll be missing a large chunk of health. But one of the other things the assault class can do is they have access to health packs, and then you can throw them down on the ground and heal up your allies. So that is another way that they work together. You also have the support, having the ammo boxes, having ammo packs. They are able to throw them on the ground and again give ammo. And there's more specifics about those we'll go into later when we go into each and every one of the classes. One of the other things that talking about field upgrade, or when we talk about synergies, when we talk about field upgrades. So field upgrades are basically a new way of kind of having, like, the better you do, the better you're going to be kind of unlocked. So field upgrades, you can see, this is basically an upgrade bar that you can see just above the players in your squad, and it'll be labeled, and it'll be a little bar, and you'll have little emblems signaling each one. So you have basically 4 unlocks that you gain as your squad does well. Each player in the squad has their own set of field upgrades because they are completely different. There's multiple kinds that you can choose from. So you can go ahead and do that. And as your squad does well, it upgrades, and then once your entire squad is wiped, then you will lose, you will go back an entire chunk to the last upgrade, and you'll be missing the one that you had before. So try not to get wiped out. Even if you have one person alive, then you're going to be saving everyone else their squad upgrades. The specific ones for squad upgrades is they have field upgrades you can use for each class is offense, defense, and shadow. Those are all available to each of the classes. The class-specific ones is the Assault has access to the Combat Medic and the Grenadier field upgrade. Engineer has access to the Anti-Tank and Mechanic field upgrades. We have the Support having access to Indirect or Perimeter Defense field upgrades, and Recon has Spec Ops or Sniper field upgrades. So again, go ahead and look at Battlelog, or go ahead and you can click ahead to the next part where we start talking about each and every one of the classes. We're going to go ahead and go over all the different unlocks that come with those field upgrades that are specific to those classes. So it kind of also gives you a general idea of how to look at these different classes. Again, Assault, Combat Medic, Grenadier, Engineer, Anti-Tank, Mechanic. You're kind of getting a feel for, you know, what they're kind of meant to kind of push the class to do. One of the other things I want to talk about is that there are certain guns and unlocks that are for all classes. So pistols, knives, grenades, carbines, DMRs, which stands for designated marksman rifles, and shotguns are all going to be playable on all the classes. So you might have to unlock them with one class specifically first, but eventually once you have them unlocked, then you are able to use them on every single one of the classes. So we have that there. The Pistols, knives, and grenades can be unlocked by every single one of the classes, but carbines are something that is unlocked by the engineers specifically. They basically are kind of like shorter barreled versions of like assault rifles. They're not all like necessarily different versions of assault rifles. Some of them are, but they are kind of like along those lines. They act in relatively the same manner. Engineers start off with PDWs, or personal defense weapons, which are basically just close range combat weapons that are meant for hip fire and just spouting off a bunch of low damage, high rate of fire bullets at the enemy. The next one is the DMRs, the designated marksman rifles. Obviously this one goes into the recon section. This is going to be unlocked as you work up in recons, and again, once you get DMRs, you basically have, for the most part, these are usually semi-auto or bolt action rifles that can be used by all the different classes, and they have their differences from sniper rifles usually being lower damage and having some different unlocks and attachments and stuff that you can use for them. And the last but not least, we have shotguns, and the shotguns are going to be unlocked by support. Again, you just have to play the class and it'll unlock just like any of the other class specific unlocks within them. This will just unlock it so every single one of your classes can use them. And of course shotguns are self-explanatory, but they are more versatile than you think because they have a bunch of different stuff put in them. Things like duckbill, which change this way that your shotgun pellets spread. You can also change the rounds to like slug rounds and stuff like that. So there's more versatility to it than you think. Plenty of attachments to go in there, so I highly encourage you not to just shrug that off because you feel like you're a long-range player. There is some stuff to look for in these shotguns. So that goes ahead and wraps up everything I want to talk about for things that apply to every single one of the classes. And next up, we're going to go ahead and jump into one of the most important classes in my opinion, one of the two most important classes in my opinion, which would be the Assault class. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and jump right on into the Assault class, which is probably one of two of the most primary classes in Battlefield 4. So the Assault class is kind of like the medic class. They're the only ones that have access to any kind of health regeneration, at least when it comes to like an actual gadget. So in this section we're going to go ahead and just touch on its gadgets. So the big thing about the Assault class, the primary function of the Assault class, is that they are the only class that have access to assault rifles. I mean, it kind of makes sense, right? You know, you're going to be an assault, then you kind of need to be able to assault things with an assault weapon, right? Okay, anyways. Besides that, they also have they have two different actual kinds, but they have the only people to have first aid. So they have a first aid pack, and then later on you unlock the medic bag. Now the difference between these two is that the first aid pack is much smaller, much easier to throw, a little bag, and it's a single-use medic bag that can only heal one soldier to full health, and then it disappears. But it can be used on the move. But if a soldier is being attacked while it's healing, the healing will stop for a short period of time and then start healing again. Whereas the medic bag is a much bigger bag. You throw it down stationary on the ground, and all soldiers nearby will slowly be healed to full health, even if they're in combat. So, and it sits there persistently until your ally dies or until they put down another medic bag. I mean, there's some stuff to fix it to where you can have more than one medic bag out, but that's typically how it works. It's just one on the ground at a time. So that's kind of like the first real big thing about Assault. The second big thing about Assault is they have the defibrillators, which we've touched on a little bit before. But defibrillators are how you revive your allies. In BF4, you can only do a revive once on somebody. If you revive somebody and they die, you can't come up and revive them again like you could in previous Battlefield games. But the defibs have a really interesting mechanic they have. The longer you hold down the left mouse click, you'll be rubbing the paddles together and charging it up. And if you get a full charge, then you will be able to revive somebody back to full health. If you just do a quick one, you just pull the defibs out and you hit it, then you only give them, I think it's about 15-20% of their health, which will actually give you more points if you do that and then throw a bag down, a little health pack down on them to heal them back up. But if, say, they're still out like in the middle of a hallway and you revive them only to 15% health, they're less likely to be able to get away. So typically the best thing you want to do if you can, if you're not in like an immediate hurry, is to try to get one of those full charges in and really help out your teammates there. and that way they can get back to safety. The other thing that's really cool about these is if you get a full charge, then you can actually kill enemy players with them. So if you get a full charge, you can't do anything less than a full charge with them, but you can actually shotgun to death, so that's pretty cool. But the other two big things that you have as the assault is you have the M320 grenade launcher, and then you also have the M26 like underslung attachment for your assault rifles. So what's really cool with this is the M320 grenade launcher isn't just a typical grenade launcher, because there's different kinds. We have the HE, the smoke, the dart, the flashbang, and then we have the LVG, which is like a timed grenade that's able to bounce off of stuff. So basically, your typical grenade launcher is basically you shoot it, and whatever it hit, it explodes. Okay, so it does like a small blast radius and stuff like that. But they also have augmented versions that do things like smoke grenades. The dart is basically like a shotgun version. It's like a 40 millimeter shotgun cartridge. Then you also have the flashbang grenades that you can use, and then of course you have like a bouncing grenade launcher that you can use. So that's kind of a cool little feature there. So you can kind of customize a little bit. The underslung little attachment you get, the M26. The primary one is to be a shotgun, so it's like an underslung shotgun you can have on the bottom of your assault rifle. But it also has the dart attachment, which basically increases the range but reduces damage. So increases range and penetration but reduces the damage. You can also turn it into a slug round shotgun. You can also have it shoot frag grenades. So those have been interesting in the past. So those are kind of hit or miss, but you can have do frag grenades. If you do use that, I highly suggest that you just try to shoot them at people's feet, because they're notoriously small ranged on their splash radius. But that's really just the assault class in a nutshell. That's pretty much all its gadgets. But they are definitely one of the primary classes you want to play. At the very least, if you're going to be playing as the assault class, I highly encourage you to almost always use a med bag, and then use defibs, especially if you're playing like in a really competitive mode. Where you like revives are going to mean a lot, like where you only have one life or something like that. You always want to have defibs, but that's just my personal opinion. You're also going to get a lot more points than if you were to have like a dart or something like that. But let's go ahead and move on to the other major class in my opinion, which would be the engineer. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and move on to the engineer class in Battlefield 4. So engineers are the only class to have access to PDWs, or personal defense weapons. These are designed to be primarily focused on hipfire, high fire rate, low damage per bullet, but definitely very deadly in the right circumstances. So when you play as engineer, you can actually only access PDWs in the very beginning. So if you just start out, you're only going to be able to access PDWs, but through the engineer class quite quickly, I think you only have to get 15,000 engineer score. You unlock the carbines, which can be used by any of the classes. And carbines are very similar to assault rifles. I think they lack some of the range and some like the little accuracy and stuff like that you would get. Like assault rifles are just a lot better, like well-rounded for carbines. But I'll tell you right now, I use carbines on almost all my classes just because I've used them so much, because I love playing the engineer. But so you get carbines through there, so that's actually really good for support and recon, because later on you're going to want to have something that's a little bit more like a typical assault rifle on all these classes. So I highly encourage you to go ahead and use those. Now let's go ahead and move into the actual gadgets of the engineer. So the engineer has a little bit more versatility. Well, I shouldn't say assault has plenty of versatility, but they have a little bit more stuff to go against vehicles. They're definitely the most anti-vehicle focused or pro-vehicle focused of all the classes. So the vast majority of their gadgets are different kinds of rocket launchers. So we have the Law, the RPG, the SMA, the Javelin, the SRA, the Stinger, the IGLA, and all of those are meant to they have different pros and cons to them to help take out enemy tanks or enemy vehicles, like that. So we have the IGLA and the Stinger, which of course are meant to go against the air, and they have their pros and cons. And then we have the Law, the RPG, the SMA, the Javelin, and the SRA, and they all have their pros and cons of going against vehicles. And those are going to be against land vehicles, but of course if you can actually hit an air vehicle with those, then they can also go into the air. But I think a lot of them you either have to be really good at aiming, which, I mean, I've done it a couple times myself, but if you're brand new at it, don't be expecting to just pop people out of the air all the time. And, or if you get like a lock on from like someone's soft lamp or something like that. So, but anyway, so those are the ones that you can use. I personally really enjoy the RPG when I'm first starting out. I would go ahead and grab the RPG because it does increase damage. And then once I was able to unlock the SRA, I went for the SRA because it is a guided anti-tank missile launcher. And that basically means is what you can do is there's some pretty cool tricks, and we'll go over those in the tips later. But once you get that, it's basically as long as you're aiming at the target, your rocket will adjust its trajectory to go there. Even if it passes the target, it'll try to come back around and hit it, and that counts for helicopters. If you're ever in a helicopter and you see this weird thing spinning around you, it's because someone's trying to SRA you, and it's trying to catch up to you. So that's kind of like a really cool thing that you can use. But also, one of the other things that they have is they have two different kinds of mines that they can put down. They have the M15 anti-tank mine and the M2 SLAM. The SLAM is kind of like a traditional landmine, except for this one is something that it like pops up and it does a lot more like critical damage for heavy vehicles. Whereas the AT mine is something that is a little bit smaller, and it kind of just like you want to try to hide in like potholes like that. They have to run directly over it. The SLAM has a little bit of a wider radius. And a little tip on the SLAMs, really annoying, but you know, I'm just going to say it anyways because this is a guide for you guys, is that you can take those SLAMs and you can put it on the front of your Jeep and then go ahead and drive it up towards a tank, but bail out right before it's about to hit. And once it runs into them, your SLAMs will go off and you can actually take out a tank that way. Again, it's really freaking annoying, but man, does it work effectively. So you also have, last but not least, the most important one I'm leaving for last, but we have the EOD bot, which is kind of it's a little bot that you can drive around. You can't do anything else while you're driving it around, and it's meant to dispose of, like, you know, landmines and stuff like that. But a lot of people like to use it to repair vehicles when they're out in heavy fire. But most importantly, a lot of times you'll see people use it to kind of scout out, and it even has that little blowtorch on it that can quite quickly kill enemy infantry. So I've seen people get like 5 or 6 kills in a row with an EOD bot because they got lucky and got behind people. So it's kind of ridiculous what you can do with these things. They're not something that's super easy to drive. They're not something that you're going to get a ton of kills with, but from time to time it can obviously give you guys a little bit of fun. But by far and away the most important tool, in my opinion, that we have for the engineer is going to be the repair tool. The repair tool is going to be how you repair vehicles, and this is going to be how you get a lot of points, and how, even if you're playing solo in a vehicle, how you can get a lot of points. So all you have to do is you equip it, and then when you're in game, you left click and hold it down, and you will repair vehicles that you are close enough to. One of the little tips on that is, I think the cycle on it, before it runs out and you have to wait for it to refresh itself, is about like 10 seconds long. So get into the habit of, as you can kind of get the feeling of when it's about to run out, about a second or so before that, go ahead and let go, and then give it about like half a second, and then hit it again, and it'll restart the refresh timer on it, and you'll get more time, and so thus you'll be able to get vehicles repaired a lot quicker rather than waiting for the full refresh timer that happens, which can be a couple seconds long. So that's a little tip about the repair tool. It's going to help you guys get a lot of points early on if you're looking to just get you know, some quick levels in and really enjoy. This is probably the class I would suggest to anybody that's just diving into Battlefield, especially if you're playing on normal. You already have regenning health. Once you get carbines, you'll have something that's akin to an assault rifle, and then you have anti-vehicle weapons, and then you also have pro vehicle weapon, or a pro vehicle gadget like the repair tool for yourself. I should also touch on just real quick, repair tools can actually damage enemy vehicles, so if you actually take a repair tool and you go up to a tank, you can actually get a kill that way. Be careful of the blast radius, you can actually get killed, especially if you're in hardcore, by doing that. So but yeah, it's really cool if you run out of rockets and it's almost dead, you can just rush up to it and get that last little kill. Alright, so let's go ahead and move on to the next class, which we're going to go ahead and talk about, which is the support. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and touch on the support class here. So support class is also another unique class in the sense that in the beginning you only start out with LMGs, or large machine guns, and they are the kind of a weird mixture of anti-infantry and anti-vehicle. You'll see what I'm talking about in a second here. I don't think they really necessarily excel at either one, but they are definitely a very necessary class to have on the field. I don't see as many people playing them as I would like, but you know what? Hey, this isn't my game, so I'm not going to tell you people how to play. Play to your heart's content. Big thing about the support class is that as once you get to 16,000 score, you will be able to unlock the shotgun line, which will be able to be used by every single one of the classes. So if you're looking for shotguns, there you go. The support class's biggest function is probably the fact that they have ammo packs and ammo boxes. Those also work just like the health boxes, but obviously they work for ammo. So the ammo pack is a smaller pack that can be used on the move, can be thrown much farther, and just supplies ammo for about one soldier. But the ammo box is what you can unlock, and it is a stationary, persistent ammo crate that soldiers will be able to get not only ammo for all their weapons, but gadgets and explosives as well. So for all those engineers that are running out of rocket launcher ammo and grenades and stuff like that, then you can go ahead and resupply them, which is always awesome. So that is the biggest thing probably about the support class, besides the fact that they have, those heavy machine guns with, 100-round clips and stuff like that in them. They also have access to their own kind of grenade launcher. It's very special. It's very interesting as well, too. It can be very effective once you learn how to properly use that. There's actually a Jack's Frag video on this I'm going to be putting up in one of these other sections here, talking about how to use it. Very good tips on it. But basically, it's called the XM25 Airburst, or just called the Airburst for short. And it fires a grenade launcher that you can set to explode mid-flight to basically help kill enemies behind cover. So there's like a way of locking onto this, and then basically you can adjust your aim right afterwards, and it'll be able to fly just past cover and blow up behind the enemy, so that way you can actually get kills that way. So kind of an interesting thing there. And just like the assault grenade launcher kits, it also has the ability to do smoke and dart. So you can turn it into kind of like a semi-automatic shotgun, and also to have smoke grenades. So that's kind of an interesting thing that you have there. Now we're going to get into kind of like an interesting mixture of stuff that they have here. We have obviously Claymore mines. The Claymore mines act differently than a lot of other games. They have, you'll see Claymore mines, they set up 3 different tripwires. And I mean, literally, you'll see 3 little gray wires. 2 that go out to, kind of to the side, and 1 that goes straight out into the front, and they will latch onto something. If they can't latch onto something, then the Claymore mine's completely useless. So you want to put it on, like, doors and stuff like that. So when people run by, if they actually run through one of these wires, then it'll explode, and it'll get a kill. Then we also have the fact that they have mortars. So these mortars are something that they have to, again, it's like the EOD bot, so they have to be looking at it the entire time to be using it. And you can basically see within a certain range of part of the map, you have like a top-down kind of thing. And the faster you shoot mortars, the less accurate they're going to be. So trying to get like that great mass of people is going to be a little bit more difficult when you do that kind of stuff. But if you wait, you can see the reticle will get smaller again, and you can shoot mortars very pinpoint accurately. They can be really deadly against snipers and stuff like that, which there shouldn't be a whole lot of snipers out there anyways. So you know what? If you're new to Battlefield, don't you go sniping all the time. It's another thing us Battlefield veterans want you to know. Stop the sniping so much. 1 or 2 a map, that's it. Anyways, moving on. We have the MPAPS, which is the Man Portable Active Protection System. Basically, what's really cool about this is it's this little tripod kind of thing that you can set up. And basically, anything within a 180-degree radius of the very front of it, it'll automatically detonate any explosive rockets or shells from both infantry and vehicles before they're able to get past it. Obviously, within a certain range. We're not talking about, the entire span of a map, so don't be ridiculous. But, if it's relatively close to it within the front 180-degree radius of it, then it'll be able to go ahead and blow those up. Now, it does not stop bullets, and it doesn't stop hand-thrown grenades, but I can tell you from experience that it will contain the blast radius of grenades. So it won't stop them from blowing up, but once it's blown up, if you position it just right, especially if you're in places like Operation Locker, 64-man, this is a very effective way of being able to garner some points when you're kind of fighting down those corridors and grenades are being checked back and forth. It does actually help protect against some of those grenade explosions. We also have something that came out with China Rising, which is the only reason why I'm mentioning it is because it was such a big hassle for a lot of people. I believe they have patched it now, but it's actually the UCAV. and it's a small reconnaissance kind of vehicle, and it's able to lock on to different things and kind of offer like soft lam and spot people and stuff. But it has an explosive warhead. The problem that it had before was that it was able to roadkill people, so people were just flying it around the map, just roadkilling people as if they were like in a jeep or like a tank running people over. I believe they've patched that now, so basically once it hits an infantryman, it'll blow up like it's supposed to. So it has a chance of killing multiple people around it. But basically, it's meant to be chucked into the air, maybe spot a few people, and then run into like a tank or a jeep or whatever, and do some damage to it. And the last one, which is probably also again one of the most important ones about the support, is that they have C4 explosives. So C4 explosives you can obviously put on the ground. You can put on. This is also kind of like the slam. You can throw it onto jeeps. This is actually how this is the first original kind of thing where you would throw it onto jeeps and you would, drive them up, and you would duck out of a jeep, and then it would, continue to roll onto the target, and then you would pull out your detonator and you would blow it up as it hits the tank or hits the vehicle or what have you, and so you can go boom and you can blow it up, and that actually was very effective. And I feel like that has a little bit more. I don't know, I guess that's why I don't find it so annoying. It says it has a little bit more skill, because you still have to get out and blow the damn thing up, whereas the slams, you just run it into something. It's definitely more effective, because it takes a lot less C4 to blow something up than it does for slams, but nonetheless, that is a very effective way of doing that. You can also, of course, always go up to a tank, throw it on the side, run away, and detonate it. I think it uses 2 C4 to blow up an entire tank. I could be wrong. It's either 2 or 3, but I'm pretty sure it's 2. In hardcore, I think it might even be just 1, but that also depends on if a tank is wounded, of course, so which is a lot easier in hardcore when you don't have regeneration. But anyways, I'm getting off to a side tangent. But yeah, so C4 is a very useful gadget. I highly encourage you guys to always use it. If I had to make a suggestion for you guys to always use, I'd probably say ammo pack, and then obviously the ammo box, and then the C4 explosive. That's going to give you probably the most well-rounded use there, because you got a really good weapons in the LMGs, shotguns, or carbines that you can use, or you can go ahead, and always have plenty of ammo for them, so you should be relatively good at being able to kill enemy infantry. And then, of course, you always have some kind of anti-vehicle or some kind of trap that you can lay with C4 explosives. So, but anyways, let's go ahead and summarize the support class, and now we're going to go ahead and move on to what is, in my opinion, the least important class in the entire game, although it's gotten better since Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4, some of the changes they made, which is the recon class. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and touch on the last class that is in Battlefield 4, which is the recon class. Now, I don't mean to be offensive when I say this, but if you play the recon class, please play it offensively, and I don't mean to just kill a bunch of people with sniper rifles, because that is a prolific problem that we have in Battlefield 4 that is just consistently there, and has been throughout the ages, especially as they got rid of like the scout class and the sniper class like they had in 1942, and they started melding them together. Basically, Battlefield, again, is an objective-based game, so when I talk about this class, realize that although it has access to sniper rifles and DMRs, if you feel like there's a couple of them on the map already, then please don't go playing with a sniper rifle, unless you're quick-scoping or something like that. Don't go, just sitting on the edge of the map. Go for those objectives and stuff like that, unless you're playing Team Deathmatch, of course, but anyways, that's probably something that a lot of Battlefield players really want to stress going into this. So I'm going to go ahead and I want to make that part of the actual class breakdown. If you're looking and this interests you, make sure to also realize it's an objective-based game, and you're going to do better for both your team and yourself if you don't just sit back and try to snipe people all the time, but you actually try to get in there and help with the objectives and stuff. So put all that aside, let's go ahead and break down the actual class. Now, the recon class is the only class to have access to sniper rifles, but just like the support and the engineers, they are actually able to unlock another kind of gun for the rest of the classes, and that is the DMRs, or designated marksman rifles. They gain this at 13,000 recon score, and these are actually really interesting. They're pretty much like semi-automatic sniper rifles. They're very helpful, especially in hardcore, because they pretty much one-shot kill depending on which one you're using. They have a lot of those extended scopes, 20 times scopes and that kind of stuff. And if you ever hear just somebody just like bat, 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 like kind of like crackling off some shots, then chances are that's a DMR, because it's just shooting straight shots, quite quickly to help get somebody, just pop them dead. So also really effective at like medium ranges, especially when you get one of those shorter scopes, which takes some use to get. I think those are unlocked after all the long range scopes to try to incentivize you to use them more as long range. But moving on, we also have the PLD, and the PLD is it stands for Portable Laser Designator, and basically it works the same way as a soft lam, where you're able to lock on to targets. So people can also lock on their rocket launchers. Again, there's no actual explosive capabilities with the PLD. It just helps you lock onto stuff so other people can get a quicker lock on and be able to shoot around buildings and stuff like that. The difference with SOFLAM, which stands for Special Operations Force Laser Marker, which is basically where you can deploy in a stationary position, and whenever you want, you can pull out your controls for it again and use it to lock onto stuff. Now it says that it's able to remotely lock on to vehicles and stuff. I haven't actually used a soft lamp personally myself, so I'm not so sure if that just means that once you actually use your remote from another part of the map, that you can actually lock onto stuff. But I also know there's a little trick right now that they haven't fixed, which is if you put a soft lamp on a control point, and you leave the control point, what you can actually do is you can so say you put it on A and then you go and run to B, and A got uncapped while you were at B. So while you're capping B, you can actually use your remote control, be looking through your soft lam at A, and cap A and B at the exact same time. It's kind of a silly little thing that they have broken about the game right now, but again, this is meant to help you guys win at the game, so here it is. That's a little piece of information for you guys. Next up, this is probably one of the biggest changes that they have. The next piece of information here is that they actually added the C4 explosive also to the recon. This is something that is new to BF4 that they didn't do before. Because as you can see, you'll see with a lot of this stuff, there's not a whole lot of other capabilities that recons had previously before. I think recons were only able to have PDWs for any other kind of gun besides sniper rifles in BF3, so they were kind of pigeonholed into being only sniper rifles. So now that you have more options, again, I really incentivize you to try to play with these other things. So they have access to C4 explosive. Again, you can use them just in the same way that the support does. Highly encourage you guys to use that. It is a very effective tool. They also unlocked a motion sensor, which is like a little just motion sensor that you can throw that'll pick up enemy movement within 25-meter radius, and it'll report it onto your team's minimap. Okay, so and it does it for about, I think it's 24 seconds, 30 seconds, somewhere there. I mean, I guess 24 sounds a little bit better, just because it sounds more specific, but I'm pretty sure it's about 24 seconds long, and you can go ahead and just throw that down. So that's actually really good for when somebody's competing with you on a point and you're trying to cap it, but it won't go because somebody else is there. You can just throw that down and you can find where they're at, and also give you an advantage of hopefully being able to figure out, once you know the map, how to get behind the enemy and get a kill a little bit easier rather than just going muzzle to muzzle with them. The next point that they have is the tugs, which is a tactical unattended ground sensor, which basically does the exact same thing except for it reports it for a longer period of time. So these are ones that you can't throw. You put them down right at your feet, and then it has the exact same radius, but it also does that. And I think it also reports vehicles. I'm not sure if the motion sensor reports vehicles, but I know that the tug does. So. But then we also have the radio beacon, which is another actual very useful piece of portable stuff that they have there. It's basically a portable spawn beacon that you can put down, and people from your squad can spawn on this portable beacon, which is again very helpful in hardcore when you're not the squad leader, to be able to have somewhere else to spawn on. Another piece of information about it that you're going to want to have is that it will make a beeping sound, so it kind of has like a static radio sound, but it also will beep, so enemies can find it that way. So you want to try to hide it off in like little nooks and crannies and stuff like that, or just behind your front line if you are in one of those kind of like hotly contested matches, again like 64-man locker or something like that. So you can go ahead and do that. Those are really helpful, and if you put them out in the open air, then they won't spawn right on top of the beacon. They will actually paradrop in on top of the beacon, so they have a little bit of control over that. The next thing that they have is the MAV, which is a micro air vehicle, which is used to basically spot behind enemy lines and help destroy enemy gadgets and stuff like that. So it's also a motion sensor, but basically it's like a little round UAV. It doesn't I mean, it doesn't necessarily fly straight like a plane. It flies more like a helicopter, so you can hover it around like that. It has a very loud and distinct engine noise where it kind of hums along, and you can hear it at a fairly large distance. So if you ever get shot down, don't be surprised. And again, this isn't. I think you can actually roadkill with this one still. Not exactly sure with that. Go ahead and try that out. You should be able to just run into people and kill them with it. I don't know if they made that one explode as well. But yeah, it's meant for spotting and taking out enemy gadgets, which again most of the time is probably just used for spotting. And then they actually also get access to the claymores as well. That's the next big piece, is they also have the access to the claymores, the 3 tripwires. All of the notes I talked about in there with the support are again going to be very applicable here. So you're going to want to make sure that those tripwires actually deploy, otherwise your claymore is going to be completely useless. And the last one that they've come out with in China Rising is the SUAV, which is basically a little monoplane that you can pick up and throw, and that has a little camera that you will watch through, and you guide it. You can't do anything else while you guide it, and you will be able to lock on to enemy tanks and helicopters and stuff like that for people to use to lock on. So basically, it's like a portable flying soft lam. So kind of an interesting thing that you can do. It has a very long time radius. I think it's time to be able to use it. I think it's like 2 or 3 minutes, something like that. It's very long. So, and I think this one also had the problem of road killing people that they also solved. So, I'm not exactly sure, but I know that they definitely solved all those issues with these flying reconnaissance vehicles of being able to road kill people consistently. So, but yeah, so those are some of the interesting tips about the recon. Hope you guys enjoyed this section. I wasn't planning on going over all the attachments and just some other general information, but I'm going to go ahead and throw that into the others section, which I'm going to go ahead and throw up an annotation right here so you guys can go and click onto that. That's going to be made into a separate guide because of how long this guide is already running. So I'm going to go ahead and throw that into a separate guide for you guys if you want to look at all the different attachments for all these different guns, or at least the ones that are consistent across the board, and so that way you guys can get a look at that. But otherwise, let's go ahead and move on to the next section. Welcome to probably what is going to be, I see this as probably being one of the most viewed sections of this guide, and that is where we talk about just a ton of tips that I have collected between all my friends that play Battlefield and what I've looked up on forums and the subreddit and everything that I've been collecting from the dawn of time, from images to all that stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and break down a bunch of tips for all of you new players, and also some stuff that maybe some of you Battlefield vets still don't know, which is fine because there's actually a surprising amount to this game. So let's go ahead and jump right on into it. The first one is going to be, if you did not know this, there's a website where you can actually look at all the different guns analytically. You can look at the different gun spreads and how their attachments affect things and all that sort of stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and throw an annotation up there. Go ahead and click on that, and you can go ahead and explore. So if you're looking at what kind of weapon you want to go ahead and play with, see the difference between carbines and assault rifles and all that other jazz, just go ahead and click on that, and that'll take you there. And if not, you can also find it in the description down below. Alright, the next one I'm going to go into, though, is going to be don't waste vehicles. That is a huge thing. I can't tell you how many times I've seen them just sit at a base and stuff like that. And also, don't just jump out of them unless you know they're going to get destroyed. Try to always have them there, even if it's at like 50% or something like that. You know, you have one more tank shell that you can get out, or maybe a couple more rounds of that LAV you can get out of it. Because all it takes is one enemy to jump in right after you, to go ahead and take it from you, kill you, and then just repair it. And now that vehicle is in the enemy hands. Sometimes it's just best to go down with the ship. You know what? It sucks, but hey, it's better than giving your enemies something that they can use against your team. So that's a huge point I want to go ahead and give to you guys. Another one is squad up or clan up. Is if you are in the game and just playing by yourself, if you're just pugging all the time, squad up, dude. Get in a squad, because you're going to have more chances to spawn on people, getting you into better positions to attack different points. You're going to have my next point, which is voiceovers. You're going to be able to talk to people in the game, communicate with them, work with them. Again, this is a team-based game where you're going for objectives, so squad up. And for all of you, you know, like fathers or mothers out there that just don't have a whole lot of time, or you're just busy, you work 2 jobs or whatever, and stuff like that, I know that clanning up sounds like such a hard idea for you guys, but you know what? There are plenty of casual clans out there that even if you don't join them, you don't sign up for them, you don't go on their forums, if you just talk to them, and join in, just like, hey, you know, I only play from time to time, but I like to play with people, then there are plenty of people that will have you just jump in and play with them from time to time. I mean, I can tell you that I already have 3 or 4 people alone that I've met and that just jump into the vent server that I have with me and my close friends. So, I mean, we allow for this stuff all the time. So go ahead and just find a group of people that you enjoy to play with. Jump from clan to clan, some people that are okay with it, and it's going to help you out immensely. That when you do finally play, that you can play with some people, that you can kind of get used to them, that you can joke around a little bit more, you can work together, you're going to enjoy the game so much more. It's a multiplayer game. It's supposed to be social. Again, my next point is going to be voiceovers, whether you're in-game or you're using a separate one like Mumble or Vent or Skype or TeamSpeak or anything like that, is get in one of these voice communications. It's going to be huge for you guys because it's going to be a lot easier than just using the comma rows, which we're going to talk about later. Or just using the typing, or even just the in-game one. Just being able to have some consistency and stuff like that is always going to help you to use that kind of stuff. If you don't have a mic, I highly encourage it. Go down to Best Buy, probably more like Walmart because Best Buy's overpriced these days. But go ahead and go down to like Walmart or whatever, or Monoprice or whatever, and pick up one of these headphones. You can get them for like $10, $15. They're not super expensive. Save up your lunch money for them and just get one. And it's gonna, I guarantee you, help your game out a lot. The next one I'm going to give you is respawn responsibly. Clicking on a desired spawn location will pull up a feed in the bottom left corner when you're dead, and it'll tell you, warning. If you click on an ally and you haven't deployed yet, it'll tell you warning because there's a bunch of enemies around, or your ally's been getting hit and they're junking around. Or if you're going to click on a point, you can see a top-down view or a separate camera that they have there of like tanks moving in or whatever. Kind of use that respectively. It's there for a reason, so you don't just jump onto a point and instantaneously get killed by the 10 guys that are there. That's just a silly idea. All right. Another one is if you use the reactive armor on any of the vehicles, is that you can actually repair that. So reactive armor is something that can be blown off with heavy or high enough damage, and if you use the repair torch from the engineer on this vehicle, you can actually bring that reactive armor back as long as you're repairing on that side. So it will eventually re-repair. You may have to repair the vehicle past 100%. Again, a lot of times I find it easiest and quickest if you're repairing on the side that the reactive armor has been blown off on. So go ahead and try to use that. That's going to help you reduce the damage again on those vehicles that you're trying to keep alive. Another great one is when you're in like vehicles and boats, you can use the F button to switch weapons. I don't know if you guys know this. If you have a secondary weapon of any kind, you can go ahead and just hit the F button to switch weapons. So that's a nice quick little tip that you can do there. The next one is in hardcore only. So when we were talking about hardcore earlier in the Battlelog section, when we were talking about the server browser, if you're looking at hardcore, don't reload all the time. Okay, so all of the magazines you reload will subtract from your total ammo. So if your entire clip is 30 rounds and you only fire 1 bullet, all 29 other bullets are going to be taken as if like you just threw them on the ground and you lost them completely, okay? So you want to try to make sure you're not reloading from half a clip. You want to make sure you're towards the bottom of it, okay? Because in hardcore, you use a mag system, okay? So this is something I'll actually explain right now, and I'll make sure to specify right now. Xbox 360 and PS3 specifically use a mag system in both hardcore and normal. When you're on PC or PS4, you use a pool system on normal, and we don't know about the Xbox One right now, but if you're on hardcore on any of these, you will use a mag system. Now, if you don't know what a mag system is or the pool system is, the mag system is, again, where you're reloading specific mags. So basically, you're not reloading based on how much ammo you have. You're reloading on how many magazines your guy started with. So you basically have 5 reloads. If you have 5 magazines, you have 5 reloads, right? So that's what you have, unless you actually gain more ammo back through ammo boxes or something like that. The pool system is where it's based off of how much ammo you have, which is, if you're playing on PC and PS4, that's how it normally works. If you're working on the Xbox 360 or PS3, it's going to use that mag system. But the pool system is basically if you start with 300 rounds and you shoot 30 bullets, or you shoot 25 bullets and you reload before that mag's empty, then you're only going to be minusing those bullets you shot from your pool, and you're not going to have to worry about losing any bullets that you didn't fire just being thrown away. So that's the difference between the two. Hardcore on every single one of these factions is going to be using a mag system. So if you're on hardcore, try not to fire too often. You'll notice a big difference in how much ammo you're going to have, throughout your lifespan. One of the next tips I want to give you is that you can double tap W to be able to run, so you don't have to hold down the shift key. Also, another thing that you can do is you can set the shift key to auto sprint, so basically you can hit it to where you don't have to hold, but all you have to do is press the button. You can get that through I believe it's the gameplay options in the escape menu in your sub menu there. So again, you can do that. You can hit W twice on your keyboard in rapid succession to be able to run. So that's kind of like a lot of other common games out there. Another point I want to make sure that you guys know about hardcore mode is there is no compass, but if you look at the map early on, you can find the direction of the farthest objective, and it's much easier to discern locations when you get information over the radio. So when you hear that a baddie is to the west or something like that, just look for like the objective based on like your UI, and you'll know if it's east or west or whatever it's like that, because of the way that you start out. So when you're in that deployment phase, you will have the chance of looking at what would be considered north, what would be considered south, and just memorize where the objectives are relative to one another. So when you hear somebody spot an enemy and it said, somebody's off to the east or somebody's off to the west, you can just look at the objectives and know where they're talking about. That is a big tip that you want to get as you learn the maps. Another thing is that every now and again you'll see something pop up on your screen that says heavy enemy presence nearby, and that's something that your commander is telling you that a cruise missile is about to drop on your head, so run like hell, but also when there's just a ton of enemies around. So that is something that your commander will do to tell you. It doesn't happen any other time. So if your commander is saying, hey, there's a crap ton of guys out there, you might want to be careful, or you might want to get the hell out of there, you're probably going to waste your time fighting there, just get out of there. That's probably your best bet. Or a lot of times a cruise missile is coming in to try to kick your ass, so use that to your advantage as best as you possibly can. And the next point I have here is going to be if you are playing as a squad leader. Now this is also whether you're pugging or you're playing with friends or whatever, is to make sure to call out objectives, okay? So this is something that you can use while using your spot key. You hit the Q button over an objective and it'll set to either attack or defend depending on if your team owns it or not. And basically use this all the time. The second one objective is done, that you've moved on past, set the next objective and make sure to try to call it out. Again, this is where that voice communication is very key to be able to keep people in line, to keep people posted. Battlefield can be a very hectic game at times, so being able to call it out to people through their headphones is going to be a much easier way of keeping people on target. And when you do these objectives, you gain bonus points. Everyone gains bonus points, you and your squad mates. So whether they're following the order to attack an objective by actually being on the point, or by capturing that bomb, or whatever, or just killing people along the way, you're going to be able to increase your score per minute. Like, I mean, I would suggest, me and my friends kind of think that probably about like good 200 plus score per minute, depending on what exactly game mode you're playing or whatever. So I would highly tell you guys to make sure you're always calling out objectives if you play as a squad leader. And if you don't like it, don't be a squad leader. Leave the squad and come back, and somebody else will be the squad leader, and hopefully they'll do it. Okay. The next one is make sure to always accept orders given to you by your commander, even if you don't follow them. It's just free points for you or your commander if you do that. There's some issues with people really noticing it. A lot of people don't know if it's necessarily easy enough to notice, but definitely something that you're going to want to do. You're going to want to make sure you always accept those those orders by your commander. They usually have a better idea of what's going on in the battlefield, so take those orders from them. And if you don't like them, then you can always just change them later. But you do gain points when you accept them, and so does the commander, which is going to help them out as well. Alright, one of the smaller tips I can give you guys is if you are swimming and you're having some trouble, go ahead and hit the same button that you have designated for crouch, and you will actually dive under the water, which is quite awesome. A nice little way of getting away from enemy fire and just kind of hiding yourself away. So go ahead and hit the crouch button to dive underwater. But again, you do have to worry about your breath, so make sure you're not always under that. So you can hit the crouch button again and it'll bring you right back up. One of the other things while you're swimming, unique to Battlefield 4, is the fact that you can now pull out your pistol to help defend yourself. You can't pull out your main firearm, but you can pull out the pistol, so that is going to be very helpful. So try to keep that in mind. There's never really a reason not to have your sidearm out, so you're not always defenseless. So go ahead and try to use that. Another point that I want to make is that the AK-12 and the carbine variant of the AKU-12 both have increased rate of fire when it's per put into burst fire mode. So although both of them can be automatic, when you hold down the button, you will actually fire faster with these two guns. And I think there might be a few others, but as far as we can tell, there's only these two so far. But you'll actually fire faster if you put it in burst fire mode. And ironically, usually end up being more accurate. So if you're looking for some more accurate, yet still high fire rate guns, go ahead and try those out. That is... again, you have an assault rifle, which is the AK-12, and the carbine variant, which is the AKU-12. So go ahead and look at those. So yeah, you guys still with me? I think you're still with me. I still have a ton more to give you guys, so hopefully these guys will help you out. One of the other things I would give you guys tips for when you're playing with an LMG is to tap fire. So just keep tap firing a belt-fed LMG, because pretty much 2 to 3 round bursts will help engage enemies at medium to long ranges while keeping you much more accurate. And especially when you're looking at games like, or modes like hardcore and stuff like that, you're going to be able to kill people plenty fast anyways, so don't worry about it too much. And again, being more accurate is always a little more important. Next tip I want to give you, if you're out of rounds while using a mortar, just press and hold E to pick it back up, and then redeploy your mortar, and you'll actually get full ammo again, so you don't have to worry about running out of ammo, which is kind of silly with the mortar, but hey, you can do it. Unless you're from Colorado, then you call it a mortar. I don't know why my friend can't say it, but he always calls it a mortar. Anyways, but the next tip I want to give you is if you have an XP boost active while you're playing as commander, you'll actually get the boost time, but the boost points, but no time will be taken off the boost duration. I think this is just a bug that's happened. I don't know if they've patched it since we discovered this, so go ahead and try it out yourself. And if you get relatively good at commander, that could really help you guys out. So that's something that is in the game last we checked. Another little small one that you can use is to, on the deployment screen, is just to double click on a spawn point instead of having to press the deploy button. It's going to help get you into the action just a little bit faster. Again, these are just like little tiny points for you guys. Another one for you guys is flying choppers over areas can actually blow up dust to help give you guys some cover when you're capping points. So if there's a lot of fire going on and you don't see like any rockets or any other explosions going around, give like if you guys are losing the fight, go ahead and give some dust cover by covering up your enemies by flying helicopters low. I think I've helped my friends a couple times that way, so that's a nice little trick that you can do. Also, another point, for when you're using sniper rifles and DMRs, a lot of these scopes you can adjust your crosshairs to a specific distance to calculate your bullet drop. So you can use the PLD if you're on your recon to aim at a target and measure the distance. So the RNG actually stands for range on that. And then go ahead and press V, which is the default key, so whatever you want to set it to with your sniper rifle to configure the range for your shot. So that's how you go ahead and do that. But just so you know, zeroing your rifle in will affect your hip fire. So if you're using a DMR, be very careful there. I know a lot of sniper people don't usually use a lot of hip fire, but it will affect where your bullets spread on your hip fire, ironically. Another point to give you guys is that if you double click on a tank to auto spawn but realize you forgot to equip your repair tool, go ahead and click on the gadget slot and you'll go to the equipment screen, and then feel free to take your time and get your repair tool out, and once you click deploy, you'll automatically spawn into the tank. So if you're having some issues there, like you forget to equip something, then go ahead and you can double click on it, and if you can click the gadget slot before you actually get into your tank, then you can have it kind of reserved for yourself and you'll jump right on in. Another point for you guys is the USAS 12 is one of the map drops, and it actually gets frag grenades. So it's the only super weapon in the game that can be resupplied with ammunition, at least that we have found. So all these other super weapons are map drops that they're kind of, depending on what map you're on, there's random map drops, and that's something that's also going to be, I'm going to have a separate video to go over, and that'll be in the other section. Where you can find the attachments as well. And that one, as far as I know, is the only one that can reload with ammo boxes or ammo packs, so keep that in mind. Another big tip for you guys is if you're going to try to knife somebody to get their dog tags, try to only do it from behind or from the sides of your target for a stealth kill, because knifing from the front will almost always get you counter knifed because the enemy is going to have that chance to react, and all they have to do is continue to slam the F button, which is the next point I was going to give you, is if you're going to be if you're getting knifed, just immediately the second you notice some kind of animation going on, just start slamming that F key, because if you have any chance of actually being able to counter knife, then just hitting it as much as you can will ensure that you don't miss that counter knife window. You don't have to worry about hitting it at the right time. You can just keep on hitting it. Another point is when you're capturing points in conquest, learn to read the cap meter. If you see yourself and 2 allies on a point and the bar isn't progressing around in that little circle or even decreasing, then you know that there is 3 enemies at least, if not more, in the vicinity. So that's the only reason why it's going to stop. Either that or you've actually gotten off the point altogether. So try to make sure to be able to read that. It's going to help you guys out a lot to know if enemies are around. Learn what vehicles spawn at which point on the map. So vehicles will always spawn at the same place on the same spawn points, and often they're transport vehicles. So sometimes it's going to help you out with like an IFV or like a tank, but often it's like a Jeep or something like that, and that's going to help you figure out how to get around the map faster, how to get to these other points faster, and how to just do a better attack or defense faster, which is going to get you more points. So try to memorize these things and where exactly they're at when you're in a pinch. Another point I want to give you guys is if an enemy holds a point and there's an empty vehicle there, get in it before an enemy spawns in it. That is seriously a huge thing. Vehicles are such a major component of Battlefield 4 that you're going to want to make sure to get in it. I mean, the only time I would say you don't really need to worry about that is obviously like a Jeep, and sometimes for some of these smaller or for the larger transport vehicles that have a machine gun on them. But even then, if you're an assault, that can mean the world to you. If they're able to jump in it and just be able to sit on the same point as you, you almost always will never have something that can actually take it out. So you're gonna want it. You might as well just sit in it anyways. And a lot of times, if you keep still, the enemy won't even know where exactly you're at. So if you just try not to move that little turret around, they're not gonna have any little signal about where you're at unless they actually hover over the vehicle itself and hit the Q button. So that's a nice little tip there. We've already gone over defibs, but I want to go ahead and touch on just one more time if you guys haven't gone into the assault section, is if you hold down the left mouse button, you can charge up your defibs. So if you do just click on them, you'll do a revive about 15 to 20% of their health points, but holding them will allow you to revive with more health, but be careful to not hold on to it too long, because they could prematurely die to where you're not able to revive them while you're still charging up. So try to make sure that you're aware of how long they have until that little icon is going to go away. Okay, so another thing is if you're going to quick revive them, throw a health pack down on them to get them to full health. Okay, so this is actually going to help you out a lot as well if you only have the little health pack and you don't have the actual medic box that you can throw down, is to make sure that you just throw that down, and it's going to get them you should get them pretty much all the way healed up if they stay on it, and that'll help you get a lot more points and level up your gadgets a lot quicker. Another thing that you want to make sure to do is, a lot of people always forget, is to check your Battlepacks tab. So we talked about Battlepacks in the Battlelog section, and you want to make sure to always be checking that as much as you can, because you're going to get a ton of unlocks and you don't want to forget that they're there. I know I've probably there was one time I think I waited like maybe 10 levels, sadly, because I just kept forgetting. I mean, I was having a lot of fun, so I don't know if it necessarily mattered, but you want to make sure that you're always getting in there and getting as many unlocks as possible, because who knows, you might get a nice XP boost that you can use. After a round, you can actually see the next map or mode by opening the little Battlelog screen. There's certain buttons that you can assign them to be able to open up Battlelog. So go ahead and look at the Battlelog screen to see what map is coming up next, rather than having to actually go out into Battlelog on by alt-tabbing out or whatever, and looking at the Battlelog server menu to figure out what is coming up next. If you don't have time to type and can't use voiceovers, you can use the comma rows, which again is going to be something that we use later, but you access it by holding down the Q button, which is again is the same one that you used to spot. If you change your spotting button, then your comma rows button will also be changed to that button as well. So you just hold it down and a little communication circle will come up. All you have to do is move your mouse to change where your cursor is, and once you let go of the Q button, it will communicate whatever it is. So there's things like sorry and thank you, I need ammo, I need health, that kind of stuff. And you can also set objectives that way. So If you have a second monitor or a tablet, you can actually use that monitor or tablet to look at the battle screen to show a constant full screen map for a nice tactical edge. So just like your mini map where you can see certain things, or when you're actually in the deployment phase, how you can see that full map, if you have a second monitor or a tablet, you can actually open up another browser and go into Battlelog and look at where you've logged in, and it'll have a little battle screen button that you can click there, and you can open it for a full screen, and you can get a nice little tactical edge there. So the next one is that you can go ahead and press the comma button to change the fire mode on your gun, or to change it to burst or single fire or what have you. I know I personally changed this. I believe I changed mine to V, but you can always do that. That's actually very helpful, especially because if you're using an automatic fire weapon, a lot of times you're going to want to change it to burst or single fire for those long range engagements. So keep that in mind, what your gun is capable of. Take time, again, to familiarize yourself with all the maps. So find any tunnels, alleyways, stairwells, ladders to help take advantage of your opponents. A lot of people are playing this game very casually, and if you are one of those people that are playing casually, you know, every now and again, just take your time to go into maybe like a less populated server, and don't just always go to try to win, but try to like learn the map as well. And if you can educate yourself on this, then when you do end up playing later on casually, if you play on these maps that you do know better, you're going to have a little bit more of a fun time, because you're going to be able to know how to get around the map a lot like people who play it pretty much daily like myself do. So don't forget, again, to wait to reload your magazine till it's nearly empty. Many players get killed when they're reloading, and so you don't see many players using pistols these days, because pistols do obviously have their disadvantage of not being the same as like an automatic fire weapon. But try to make sure that you reload your primary weapon when you have it all clear. Don't just do it right afterwards all the time. That gets people killed quite a lot. I know that it's gotten me killed quite a lot when I'm just in a rush to try to get it reload. And try to make sure you're always reloading under cover. So one of the things that you want to actually try to do is to make sure you always have a player that's alive near one of the objectives or towards the center of the map. Because one of the worst things that you can have to deal with is to have to spawn back at your home base and travel all the way back to the center of the map, or to near one of the important objectives. So try to make sure that as a squad you're always trying to keep at least one of you guys alive, and that'll actually help you out with your field upgrade score as well. If you don't get wiped out, then you'll always have your field upgrade score going up. When using pistols, it's a great setup to use for the assault, engineer, support. So while in a firefight, use them as a last resort after your magazine is empty from your primary weapon. Equip pistols with laser sight to help increase the hip fire accuracy when combating in close quarters. And for a faster reload when you have one round at least in the chamber. This will allow you to just slam a new magazine in, and you won't have to run through the animation where you have to rack the slide back to continue firing. This is actually really important for a lot of the other guns as well that go through the game, is that if you reload with one bullet left in the chamber, then you will reload a lot faster than you do if you have completely empty weapons. So that's going to help increase your fire rate. When using pistols as a recon, equipped with a bolt action primary weapon, use a pistol as your primary when moving from spot to spot. The higher fire rate with the pistol as compared to a sniper rifle, especially a bolt action, will give you a higher chance of survival. Recons equipped with semi-automatic rifles don't necessarily need to follow this rule, but I've definitely found that, especially if you have a long-range scope, using that hip fire is not always as accurate as if you were using a pistol, especially when you can aim down sights, or if you were like my friend Eric, where he can just pistol whip the shit out of anybody. And I mean seriously, toe-to-toe assault rifle, I will put my money on Eric over you when you have an assault rifle and he has a pistol, hands down. Anyway, so I want to go ahead and take some of the advice that he was handing out about pistol upgrades, ironically, because now he wants to have it to where you can compete with him. Go ahead and, again, try to use lasers to help increase the hipfire accuracy. That's sometimes very important for your pistols. They're very helpful in close-range combat, but in long distance, that laser can give your position away, so you're going to want to make sure, I believe the default is the T key to turn off any of these attachments. Also, using flashlights is very useful in the small corridors and hallways, since that beam of light can be focused in a more direct level. But again, use caution in these straight hallways as your position can be seen much easier. There's also some issues with the flashlights going through what should be solid objects like desks and stuff like that, and even some parts of the terrain in general, to where people below you or above you can actually see you as you're running your flashlight going along. So again, you can turn these off and on by hitting, I believe the default is T or whatever you've set it to, so try to use those as well. But flashlights do perform nicely when moving around corners to help surprise enemies and blind them. That's going to give you a nice advantage, and the only thing they can really shoot at is whatever this bright light is. But in the end, that makes them a lot less accurate than if they could actually see their target. Suppressors have a significant drawback when equipped. They reduce the range and hipfire accuracy, and the only major benefit they have is that they will not report your position on the minimap. This is not something I suggest at all when you're using hardcore, where the vast majority of the time your minimap is going to be disabled. So there's really no point in a suppressor at all when people don't see you on the minimap. So don't ever use them in hardcore, but it can be really good if you're trying to be a sneaky son of a bitch, running around the map in normal mode or any other of these kinds of modes. So, alright, so we're going to go ahead and get these last few ones here. I know this has been a rather long section for you guys, but there's a ton of helpful information in it. And but these next ones are going to all be talking about, again, some similar points, but what I'm going to do with these ones, I'm going to annotate them because there are already some really good guides out there, or just little notes out there to help you help illustrate the points for you guys. So when you're playing as a commander, here's a guide for you guys to help teach you how to play it effectively, how to accept commands, and all these other kind of things like that. So go ahead and check out that guide there. Again, when we were talking about reloads, to help cut off about a second on your RPG times, watch the bullet counter on the bottom right and not the animation. As soon as you see that your RPG has been reloaded in your bullet counter, switch to your pistol and then switch back to your rocket launcher, and you will be able to fire it just a little bit faster, which could mean the difference between getting that kill and not getting that kill. Again, go ahead and look at that annotation to see exactly what I'm talking about. When shooting the SRA in the air, you can shoot it into the air and then reload and then fire a second one and aim at the target. Again, the SRA is the one that is wire guided. So if you're shooting at a target that is relatively far away, or even one that's relatively close by, what you can do is you can shoot one directly up into the air, reload, shoot another one at the target, and if you keep aiming, then your second SRA that's in the air will come back down and will impact the target as well. Basically, getting 2 rockets to land in relatively short amount of time. What's also cool is if you shoot it straight up into the air, a lot of times you'll get that bonus damage from attacking from the top, where almost all vehicles have less armor. I should say all vehicles have less armor than they normally would. And this actually works with the IGLA, is that if you fire it off to the side and then you reload and again, shoot it and guide it in there, then you'll be able to get 2 rockets in, which will help you not just disable helicopters, but to take them out instantaneously. So that's a little tip that you can use there. It's also good to note that RPGs do more damage when they are laser designated, so get a recon to soft land for you. RPGs will do the same like you get when you use any of these other lock-on ones, where they actually will go forward a bit, go shoot up into the air, and then come down from the top. And RPGs are the most direct damage of any of the rocket launchers, since they normally don't have any lock-on of their own. So if you have someone that's using a soft lamp and you can get an RPG to do that way, you can actually do, I think, somewhere about like 40 or 50 damage just from one of these RPGs, which, again, if you're playing in hardcore, a lot of times these vehicles driving around are already somewhat damaged, and so that can mean a very big help. And that's almost always going to be a critical hit that's going to slow down or completely immobilize whatever vehicle you are shooting at. Again, don't forget to click on any of these annotations if you want to see them recognized. You can also gain health and ammo with enemy packs, so be careful where you place them, but also be aware if you see them there. I don't know if they're actually labeled on the map. I don't think I've ever seen actual enemy health or ammo labeled, but if you do see them on the ground, you can stand next to them and you will get healed and you will get ammo from them. Elevators will transport C4, so use this to your advantage. There's a lot of times when Enemies that are camping the elevators will put their own C4 right outside the top. So if you're having a hard time, like say on Hainan Resort or something like that, where there's these elevators, Shanghai is also another good one, then you can put your own C4 in the elevator. You can throw it in there, and then it should be able to work. So it didn't used to work, but it should work now, at least the last time we checked. Go and test it out again. But you can go ahead and move it up there. If people get in, or if you want to blow up the enemy C4 that's there, you can go ahead and trigger that and blow it up, which is always very useful. The XM25 airburst can shoot across the map to help take out those pesky snipers. It has a very long range, and that's kind of what it's meant for. So again, there's a little bit of guide there to help get you guys used to the idea. It's going to take a little bit of practice, but it is very, very helpful. And the last one that I'm going to talk about for annotation is crouching will not reveal your presence on motion detectors. So if you crouch and you move slowly, then you will not show up on motion detectors. But if you are running or not crouched, then you will be picked up on these motion detectors. And again, you can click on that annotation to see what I'm talking about there. So I do have a couple more tips I'm going to go over. Some of them are a little bit repeated, but I want to make sure to actually illustrate them for you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and show that for you guys now in my own version of these filmed tips. Alright, so unfortunately this would be where my filmed tips section would be, the ones that I actually put together for you guys. I actually have several of them, but for whatever reason, trying to put it in to Premiere, it kept crashing. So what instead of here is I'm going to make it as a separate video. So go ahead and click on this link, click it, just click it now. You'll see it as a separate link. It's right there. You can just click on it. I promise, there's tons of awesome stuff in it. Just click it. Oh, okay. If you're still listening at this point, you probably haven't clicked it, but this isn't the Stanley Parable. I'm not gonna have anything else to tell you guys. I mean, I can't offer you like another video. Are you still here? You're still here, aren't you? Is that what you want? Do you just want another video? You don't want my tips. You want something else, right? What can I do to please you? Can I give you? How about a music video? How about this? You still didn't click anything. You're still here, huh? Alright. What about some Vine? No, I'm not gonna give you Vine videos. Those are stupid. What do you want from me? You know what? Here, try it again. Maybe, look, it's got cool little animation around it. Click it. Yeah? No? Okay, so you don't want it. You really don't want it, do you? You probably want a Minecraft video, don't you? I want some kind of Minecraft video. Yeah. Only some of you want a Minecraft video. I mean, what else is on YouTube these days about Minecraft videos? Minecraft? No? Yeah. Do you want to click on it? No? Maybe click. No? Okay. Well, clearly there's no pleasing you. Here's my video. You hurt my feelings. Check it out if you want to make amends. Let's move on to the vehicle section. Let's talk about some vehicles. Alright, so here we are in the vehicle section of the compendium, and here I want to do things a little bit differently. I want to try to just give you guys advice about the vehicles, and what I'm also going to do is I'm also, of course, going to go over all the upgrades that you have, but instead of just explaining all of them, I'm going to have the text explain exactly what they are with their descriptions, and then I'm going to just go ahead and give you what I personally, how I personally build vehicles for myself and my playstyle, and then also how I would see a good setup going for if you, for some of these vehicles that are a little bit more on the flexible side, being able to attack, ones that maybe wouldn't be, or targets that wouldn't be natural for that vehicle, like the mobile AA, being able to make it to where it's better off attacking ground vehicles and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and jump right on in. This first vehicle, we're going to go ahead and talk about the main battle tank. This is actually a vehicle that I feel like I have a fair amount of expertise in, and I also feel like a lot of people seem to struggle with. A lot of people go, ooh, a tank, and jump in it, but just do it completely huge disservice, and I find myself very rarely actually saying, wow, that was a really talented tank driver I went up against. And so I want to try to give you guys some tips, because it's actually probably one of the few things I'm actually good at in the game. So one of the tips that I want to give you guys for the main battle tank is I actually have a guide here where you can go ahead and click the annotation that's going to show up below. But on top of that, I want to add to always have the front of your tank facing your enemy because of how strong the armor is there compared to the rest of your vehicle, and you're also way less likely. It's such a random chance. And probably more of a fact that the hitboxes messed up for whatever reason, that you're never going to get a critical hit in the front. If you do, it's probably because the hitboxes just broke up, or just are broken on that, or whatever, like something happened. But if you get hit on the side and get hit in the rear, you're much more likely to have a critical state imposed on you. And basically being completely immobilized, which is absolutely terrible for a vehicle like the tank, or being where you can only like slowly trundle back or forwards and stuff like that. That always sucks, and it's never fun to be placed into. One of the other things is knowing that the back of your tank, the engine, is a little bit taller, and so thusly your cannon is not going to be able to go as low as it could on the front or on the sides. It's just another reason why you want to try to always make it to where your rear is not exposed, and you're ideally presenting your front, and if you have to, your sides to the enemy. One of the things that I want to give you guys a tip about when it comes to fighting against enemy tanks is a lot of people just try to engage right out of the gate, but if you can get into a better position without the enemy knowing where you're at, go for it. If you can get a first shot directly into the back of a tank rather than into the side where they're able to now pivot and turn towards you, that is such a smarter move to do. So I would use speed. In every attack I use, I always use speed to my advantage. I almost never am not holding down the shift button to go as fast as I possibly can the tank. I'm always charging to the next point, constantly staying on the move, blitzkrieg, 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 lightning war, get to the target as fast as you can. And when you're going up against other vehicles, it's all about trying to get behind their weak spots rather than trying to actually just get into the combat as soon as possible. Don't worry, there's going to be plenty of enemies to kill. Even if you happen to miss that kill, it was way worth it rather than drawing unnecessary attention to yourself. One of the other things is a lot of people seem to have an issue with helicopters, and I've seen some guides come out about how people try to take down helicopters, but I feel like they're really missing one step. So a lot of people think that like the best way to take out a helicopter is to, as a helicopter comes down, because the way that the helicopter's rockets work is they have to nose down towards the ground and fire their rockets at you before they don't hit the ground and they peel back up. And so what you can do is you can turn your turret to basically where their flight path will be once they're pulling back up, once they pass you, and you can shoot them in the back. Well, one of the things that frustrated me about guides on this is no one seems to mention the fact that if you move forward or backwards depending on how your vehicle is faced, and basically try to move underneath where they're attacking you, so say they're attacking you from the north and you're facing the north with the front of your tank, move forward so as they're coming forward towards you, you're also going towards them, and they'll fly over you sooner. All you have to do is hold down the W key, and while at the same time you're moving your mouse to the left or to the right to flip your turret around the back. And you're going to keep moving forward, and you're going to turn your turret right around, and what that's going to help you do is it's going to help you dodge a lot of those rockets, because instead of sitting in there completely still just taking all the damage and waiting for them to pass, where a helicopter is designed to take you out. If they get every single rocket on you, you're dead man. You're absolute dead man. You're hoping to run into a crappy helicopter pilot. Instead, if you move forward, you're forcing them to either dive steeper or bail out of their entire attack run altogether. And so when you turn that around, especially when we talk about the attachments using the sabot round, you're going to instantaneously hit them with a shell right in the back, and you're going to get that kill. And then again, if you use active protection, which basically we'll get into that in the countermeasures, is going to help you not take any hits when you do this. And so you can go up against a helicopter, and I've done this many times before, where a helicopter dives at me, maybe hits me with one rocket before my active protection's up. All of his rockets are now being blocked by it. I dive underneath him so he can't actually hit me. He's just above the ground by the time he starts pulling up. My turret's already turned around. I shoot him right in the butt, and I get a free kill because he's and crashes into the ground. So that is something I really want to stress to you guys, is always staying mobile even when you're going against a helicopter. Okay, even more so when you're going against a helicopter. But let's go ahead and move right on into the upgrades that you can get in the tank. So we're going to start by looking at the primaries. And the primaries, you're able to use the AP shell, which is an anti-personnel shell. It's still going to do good damage against light, medium, and heavy armor. But then we also have an HE shell, which is your high explosive shell that's going to do a lot more damage against heavily armored targets. I think it's about 10 damage more usually, but it's going to travel at a slower velocity. And then the last one that we have for the tank is the sabot shell, which has no explosive payload at all, basically doing the exact same damage as the AP shell, but has an increased velocity and has almost no drop-off that I've seen. You can fire that sucker across an entire map with very slight incline. So I personally use the sabot shell. Helps me snipe people at longer ranges, helps me take out air vehicles a lot easier, and honestly, the HE shell, I mean, there's really just no point with the HE shell. It moves so damn slow, and the damage is so minimal compared to it, especially when you use other upgrades like reactive armor and active protection. But moving into the secondary, we have the coaxial LMG, which is your typical light machine gun, a guided shell, coaxial HMG, the canister shell, and the staff shell. Now the big ones I want to touch on here are the guided shell, which is basically a lock-on shell that you can use. This also works with any soft lam to be able to attack from the top. You have the canister shell, basically turning your entire tank cannon into one giant motherfucking shotgun. And then we have the staff shell, which basically it has a little bit of kind of like a mini soft lam in it, in the sense that as you fire at a target, right before it hits the target, it will jump up and go over the target and explode, dealing extra damage. A lot of people like to use this mixed with their primary to help take out vehicles a lot faster. But when we go into countermeasures, I'll explain to you why that is completely useless. But basically, it gives you a chain gunning effect of being able to constantly fire shells because of the way that DICE has made it work. The staff shell does not have the same reload timer as your primary because it's considered a secondary. So you fire your primary, you fire your secondary, you fire your primary, you fire your secondary in quick succession, like 4 or 5 seconds. So let's go ahead and move on to the countermeasures where I will explain why it doesn't matter. We have the IR smokes, the smoke screen, the fire extinguisher, and most importantly, the active protection. The IR smokes and the active protections are the only ones that I would actually suggest. IR smokes are going to help you break any lock-ons, and then active protection, once you unlock it, should be an absolute must for anybody driving a vehicle, in my opinion. Once you activate it, after a short delay, it will block all incoming threats. So obviously not bullets, but it's going to stop any RPGs or even like bombs that are dropped from planes or rockets from helicopters, just like that. And it'll block them for 4 seconds. So as you can see here, if somebody is chain gunning their normal primary shell and their staff shell against me and a tank, my reload timer is usually rather quick anyways, so I can usually get off one shell of mine, and then I put up my active protection. I block usually 2, maybe 3, depending on how fast I can get those shells off, with my active protection, and then I go ahead and I get another one of my shots off, and I've blocked 2 or 3 of their shots, and I've gotten 1 or 2 of mine in if I'm accurate enough. So I really don't see any point in wasting your secondary, which should be used as an anti-infantry tool on taking out other vehicles. You're already a tank, you're already the dominant anti-vehicle person on the map. You really don't need to have a staff shell, although it can be fun from time to time. Moving on, we have optics, and these are going to be the same pretty much across the board for all vehicles, but I'll explain them here. We have the 3x zoom. We have the infrared optics, and we have a thermal optics. The infrared optics is only good at close to medium ranges, and the thermal optics is good at all ranges. So once you get thermal, I really just suggest, if you want to use that kind of stuff, that you use that one. Personally, I use the zoom optics on all of my vehicles because I like to be able to snipe people. Then we're going to move on to upgrades. So for the upgrades, you have a maintenance, thermal camo, active armor, and reactive armor. I used to use maintenance all the time, but I've been playing a lot of hardcore, and so whenever I jump into hardcore, there's no actual natural recovery rate, so having an improved natural recovery rate doesn't actually help me because it doesn't exist at all. So I've been using reactive armor, because it's going to help out take less damage, which again, when used with active protection and just smart tank driving, like trying to hide behind buildings and hills and, you know, not have people shoot me in the back, then it's going to help out a lot because it's going to reduce what little damage I do end up taking through all of the rest of what I'm trying to do. So, but let's go ahead and move on to the gunner upgrades for the tank. Alright, so for the gunner upgrades, we have gunner optics, which again, we have the zoom, the infrared, and the thermal. You guys can choose to use whichever ones you want. I personally use the zoom. Then we also have the gunner upgrades, which is the belt feeder, the gunner proximity, gunner soft lam, and gunner incendiary. Gunner incendiary sounds like a really cool thing, but frankly, to kind of waste something that could help you all the time on something that is kind of situational, as in like killing you know, people trying to see for you, I really don't see a point in it unless you know, you guys are playing on a really close map or something like that. But personally, what I use is either the proximity scanner or the soft lam, depending on if my friends want to use their guided shell or not, because that guided shell does work with the soft lam. Alright, so that's going to be my tips on the tank. Again, try to make sure you're always attacking in quick speed. Try to make sure you're always using the element of surprise to your advantage. Don't waste it by just getting tank shells off quickly. You also want to make sure that you are constantly moving from point to point to point when you're playing in Conquest. If you're playing on something like Rush or something like that, you want to play more defensively and use it as something that pushes and advances or holds a defensive line for your team. You're going to be basically kind of a bulkhead either against the defensive players pushing you back or against the offensive players pushing you back. So that's exactly how I would use a tank. But let's go ahead and move on to the next vehicle, where we're going to talk about the mobile AA. Alright, so here we are talking about the mobile AA, and again I'm going to treat this as more of just kind of giving you guys an idea of how to customize the mobile AA to different situations. So the mobile AA is very weak pretty much all the way around it. I mean, obviously it's a little bit better in the front, but it's not really meant to get engaged a whole lot in actual land combat, so you're going to want to try to stay out of it as much as possible unless you're relatively good at it. One of the things that I will make sure to point out here is how you can customize it if you want the challenge to work against land vehicles here. So let's go ahead and jump right on into the unlocks though. So you only have two unlocks for your primary. You have a 20mm cannon, which shoots at a very high rate of fire, and this is your default when you first get it. And then you have a 30mm cannon, which shoots at a slightly slower rate of fire, but actually does really good damage against land vehicles. So I highly suggest that you try out the 30mm cannons once you unlock it. I like to use it because I can help take out LAVs and stuff like that with a 30mm cannon. With your secondaries, you get the heat seekers, passive radar, Zuni rockets, and active radar. Now, if you're going against air, you just want to be a complete anti-air, you know, obviously AA. Then I would use the heat seekers personally, or the active radar, depending on your preference. And if you wanted to try to do something that can do both land and air, I would go for the Zuni rockets. That's going to be your best bet when it comes to that, because Zuni rockets, you can fire. They have a very steep drop-off after a certain point, but they are going to be really good at taking out land vehicles, and that's really the only thing that you have as the AA to go against land vehicles besides your cannon, which does not work against tanks. These Zuni rockets actually will do damage against tanks, whereas your 30mm cannon will do nothing. Moving on, we have the countermeasures. Again, IR smoke, smoke screen, fire extinguisher, and active protection. Again, I just use active protection on everything, and as I was leveling up, I used IR smokes. There's really no point using any other thing, in my opinion. Again, for optics, we have the exact same thing: zoom optics, infrared, and thermal optics. I use zoom optics. I like to shoot people out of the sky, and being able to have easier target acquisition when they're really high up there is going to make it a lot easier for me to shoot them down, even when they're at my extended range. And then the last section, of course, is the upgrades, where we have maintenance, thermal camo, auto loader, reactive armor, and then 2 new ones. We have proximity scanner and air radar. Proximity scanner is going to be for the ground, and it's going to help you detect any ground enemies around you. And then air radar, which is going to have a very wide radius around you, and it actually turns your entire minimap into a little radar screen with your AA sitting in the middle, and that is going to help you see any air vehicles out there. Again, though, it changes your minimap, so if you're relying on your minimap at all, like in hardcore or anything like that, then it's not going to be useful to you at all. So personally, I use the proximity scanner, but if I'm playing in hardcore, which I haven't run into the AA in hardcore a whole lot, so I would probably use reactive armor. Alright, so that's going to be how I would use the AA. Again, if you want to try to use it towards the land, you can use the Zuni rockets. That should help you out quite a lot. Again, mixed with active protection, you're kind of just like a really lightly armored vehicle that can do a really good job at attacking air vehicles, both helicopters, and also light vehicles, and even somewhat so the tanks. So that should give you guys a nice little mix and hopefully something to try out there. And just remember, it is a track vehicle, so it's going to be a lot easier to pivot around just like a tank. Okay? So with all that said, let's go ahead and move on to the next vehicle, where we're going to go ahead and talk about the IFV attack tank. Alright, so here we are going to talk about the IFV tank, or the LAV as a lot of people like to talk about it. But the LAV is technically a transport vehicle. This is the actual one with the full-fledged cannon on it. It's a 6-seating assault vehicle. It is a wheel-based vehicle, so it's not going to have the track, so it's going to have a much larger turn radius. It also has the issue, because it has wheels on the side, just like the tracks, but the wheels are even more exposed. It's going to make it a lot easier for people to get those critical attacks on you from the side and from the rear. The front has better armor, but again, it's still not a full-fledged tank, so you're going to still take more damage from the front than you would if you were in a tank. So personally, when I'm using an IFV, I use this sucker to just outrun every motherfucker I can. I'm constantly charging all the points that I can get onto. But the thing is you got to play this even smarter than you would normally, especially if you have people actually running around in it with you, like your squad mates or anyone else that just happens to be pugging along. You want to make sure that you're not just going to get them into really stupid situations. So although this is really good out in the open field, the tanks are better in the open field, so you're going to want to try to make sure that you are blitzing behind some kind of cover if you're in a sticky situation or going through a really hot area of the map. So that would be my piece of advice. Again, always attack, 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 move incredibly fast, but then make sure once you're at your point, you are not exposing your rear or your sides to anybody, at least as much as you possibly can. So, but let's go ahead and move on to the primaries, where we have the 25mm HE shell. Basically, you have another saber round, but it's called the APF blah 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 blah, blah shell, and then a canister shell. So you have again, you have the basic shell that's good against infantry, light armor. It can do damage against heavy armor, but it's not all that great. I think it usually ends up doing 2 or 3 damage on each tank, but since you have 12 rounds, that's not super bad. I usually personally use the blah 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 shell, the APFSDST shell, because I again like the high velocity and the damage is exactly the same, so there's really no point in my opinion. I don't really care about the splash damage because I usually have a secondary. Moving on to the secondaries, ironically, we have the coaxial LMG, the tow missile, and the Zuni rockets. So personally, I use the tow missile a lot of the time. Sometimes I use the coaxial LMG. Really just depends on what map I'm on and if I bother to actually change it up. Most of the time I probably use the tow missile, though. The tow missile is wire guided, so wherever you are aiming your reticle at, it will go to. And if it misses a target, then you are shit out of luck. But it does really good damage against heavy armor and any infantry within the blast radius. And then we of course have Zuni rockets, but after trying it out, the tow missile is just so much better because of how quickly it reloads, and the fact that by the time your tow missile usually hits the target, or you launch your tow missile, you can already switch back to your main cannon and still guide the target in, and your reload on your main cannon will pretty much be done within a second, if not already by the time you switch back. So usually it's just good for when you're waiting for that reload time, get a tow missile out, and then right back to your primary. And by the time that tow missile is being guided to its target, you can already start getting some more of those shells out there. So moving on to the countermeasures, we have IR smoke, smoke screen, fire extinguisher, and active protection. I use active protection. I would love for you guys, if you have a case for using any of these other ones, to go ahead and comment down below. And if you have a good point, then I'll go ahead and add it into the annotations so people can see. Again, with optics, we have zoom optics, infrared, and thermal. Again, personally, I just like the 3x zoom. I really don't have a problem with target acquisition, except for when they're too far away, so I like to be able to see them. And then with upgrades, we have maintenance, thermal camo, auto loader, and reactive armor. Again, personally, I would either use maintenance if I'm only playing on normal all the time, or reactive armor. But reactive armor, I feel like, is a little bit better suited to any game mode, so I personally use it all the time. Also, I play engineer a lot of the time, so I can always just repair my reactive armor, so it's a win-win situation. So hopefully that helped you guys out. Don't forget, again, to go ahead and click on any of the annotation for links to these vehicle guides down below. Alright, so the mobile artillery has some really cool stuff to it. There's only a couple maps that actually have it, but it acts exactly like the artillery that you get, or the mortars that you get with the support. What is really cool about it is it does have two different slots, so you have you actually being able to move around, have somebody drive you around, and then you also have the fact that you can shoot the rockets out the back in the secondary position. It also can be kind of annoying because you have teammates that will just jump into the primary position and start driving it around while you're trying to have target acquisition. But it can be kind of cool from time to time to kind of squad up with friends and kind of bring it along and stuff like that. So one of the things that should be noted is in hardcore, for whatever dumb shit reason, DICE decided not to actually put reticles on the mobile artillery, even though you get it on all the other artillery in the game. For whatever reason, just because hardcore gets rid of your reticles, they decided to get rid of the reticles on your mobile artillery. So if you're in hardcore and you try to use artillery, just shoot towards, or just use the center of your map as a way of figuring out exactly where your small radius artillery shells are going to land. It's quite perfect, right? Anyways, so that's a little bit of a piece of advice I'd use. That is very delicate and can easily be killed in one shot if not used properly. But let's go ahead and move on to the next vehicle. Alright, so we're now going to talk about the attack helicopter. So the attack helicopter has a very interesting role in the battlefield. It is probably the most mixed because of the fact that it can attack air units quite successfully, as in like other planes and other helicopters, it's like that, but it's also meant to take out ground targets. So it's kind of weird because it gets dominated most of the time by any good fighter pilot that is in the air, because one pass that isn't dodged successfully enough and that helicopter is going down like a knucka. So I would highly suggest that you have some kind of anti-air experience, or sorry, I should say weapon attached to you whenever you can, using the attack helicopter. One of the other things to remember again about the attack helicopter is that when attacking ground units, you have to actually nose down to be able to get your rockets off in the proper position. So always be mindful about how high and how low you are, especially when you're going against tanks and LAVs. You want to make sure that they're not going to be able to get any easy hits on you. If you're coming in too low when you start your attack run and you basically almost scrape the ground, you're going to be easy pickings for any tanks or people with RPGs or anything as you pass by. Let's go ahead and move on into the primaries. The primaries, you have Hydra rockets, Zuni rockets, and Smart rockets. The Hydra rockets are kind of just like your basic rockets you get applied with. The Zuni rockets you see on land vehicles as well. They're completely unguided. And then you have Smart rockets, which basically will help lock on to any of the nearest armored targets. They don't move a ton, so don't expect them to be, like they have soft lamp attached to them, but they will help you with that little bit of trajectory miss that you might get while you're diving down. I personally use Smart rockets on my helicopters. Moving on to the secondaries, we have heat seekers and tow missiles. Quite clearly, I would suggest heat seekers, both for the fact that you have some kind of anti-air still capabilities in there, and the fact that tow missiles require you to keep your actual nose down on a land target, which I don't really see a point in that. A lot of times you're already putting down your rockets, which themselves can destroy a vehicle, so there's really no point in adding a tow missile in. You're just risking having to stick your nose towards the ground even longer, making your attack runs have to start even higher. But moving on, we have the countermeasures, where we have IR flares, the fire extinguisher, and the ECM jammer. IR flares work exactly like the IR smokes on any of the land vehicles. Fire extinguisher does the exact same thing, and the ECM jammer basically helps stock all locks and breaks any missile guidances for a short period of time. If you IR flares do the exact same thing, but I actually find that the ECM jammer does a little bit better job, because if something is just about to hit me and I drop my IR flares, it'll still hit me. If I throw my ECM jammer off, a lot of times it'll might explode like right next to me, or it'll completely miss me altogether. So I found the ECM jammers to be just a little bit more superior. If you have any findings to be counter to that, or any information that's counter to that, go ahead and message it to me, and I'll throw it up in an annotation to make sure that people are getting the best information out there. Moving on, though, we have the upgrades, which is the gyro stabilizers, the air radar, and stealth coating. Personally, I like to use either air radar or gyro stabilizers. I haven't played a whole lot of the attack helicopter in hardcore, so for me, air radar has paid off a lot. And the gyro stabilizers is really awesome when you are dealing with a lot of people that are using like IGLAs and stuff like that against you. I know that stealth coating is supposed to be really good for that because it increases the lock-on timers, but eventually they're going to get locked onto you anyways. And the gyro stabilizer is going to help you from not, instantaneously crashing, which can happen quite a lot when you get hit with some of these more powerful rockets against you. And then, of course, we have the gunner upgrades that you have. So we have, first, a gunner's secondary weapon, which you can either have a laser-guided anti-tank missile that requires a constant lock. It can be used with soft lam, which is also very helpful, or you have a TV missile, which is basically you fire the missile, and you can't do anything else because you now are looking as if you're at the nose of the camera, and you are controlling the missile into the target. This is actually something I prefer to use, the TV missile, because you can use it to take out helicopters that are sitting still. Very, very cool to take out transport helicopters that are completely full with the TV missile, and you can also use it to help get around buildings just that much more when you're trying to attack armored targets and stuff like that. So that's always a fun little trick to do. We also have, again, the gunner optics, which you have, again, the same three that you have on all vehicles: the zoom, the infrared, and the thermal. Personally, I use a zoom, but honestly, I'm not a gunner a whole lot in BF4 because of the way that there's no more flares like they did in BF3, where gunners had their own set of flares. So attack helicopters don't last nearly as long as they did in BF3, which is probably a good thing and a bad thing, but I don't find it as satisfying being able to just quickly get, acquired by a bunch of people using IGLAs and stuff like that. It really just kind of kills the mood for me. But moving on to the next one, I use the gunner upgrade of the proximity scanner, and then we also have the belt feeder. But I personally use the gunner proximity scanner. There's really no point in not being able to see what is around you, especially when, as a gunner, you are supposed to be spotting any enemy vehicles that are around you. Alright, so when using the attack helicopter, again, I would highly suggest using smart rockets once you unlock them, and heat seekers with the ECM jammer. Anything else from there is just kind of like your own personal choice. I do really like the TV guided missile though, so at least try it out. Alright, so with all that said, let's go ahead and move on to the next air vehicle, where we're going to go ahead and talk about the scout helicopter. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and touch on that scout helicopter, also known as the Little Bird. Now the Little Bird, I'll probably use them interchangeably here, so just remember that. But the Little Bird itself is a four-seater attack helicopter and a transport all in one. The four different seats, you have obviously the main pilot, which has a primary and a secondary weapon and controls all the countermeasures. Then you have two skid seats. So skid seats are basically where people that sit on the side of the helicopter and their feet rest on the skids. Those are two very important seats. And then the fourth seat, you have a co-pilot that can't do jack diddly shit but sit there and then eventually bail out. That is pretty much all they do. So the three first seats are probably going to be the most important. And one of my tips before we go ahead and get into the actual unlocks that you can use is that whenever possible, this is a great team vehicle. The Little Bird actually has a lot more potential to do a lot of great damage to people, and especially when you have the ability to stay alive longer, because the Little Bird's weakness is the fact that it cannot take so much damage. But what is its strength is the fact that if you put 2 engineers in the skid seats of the Little Bird, then whenever you get hit with a rocket, you can have 2 engineers with their repair torches out repairing the Little Bird. Now this is something you're going to see quite often, and boy does it help keep them afloat. If you're up nice and high in the air, you can actually stay up pretty well, because although when you get hit with rockets you get knocked from side to side and stuff like that, which can be much more of an issue when you are lower to the ground, you don't have to deal with that so much when you're up in the air, and you have plenty of room to recover from any bad angles, and also gives you time to yell to bail out for all your friends that are repairing you. So, but with that said, let's go ahead and move on to some of the upgrades that you can get with the Little Bird, considering that this is a very ground-focused attack helicopter, even more so than the attack helicopter. So we're going to look at the primaries here. The primaries, you only have 2 things to choose from. You got a very high fire rate here in the first miniguns you get, and then later on you get 25mm cannons. That would be exactly what I loved about the Little Bird the most, is the cannons. Holy shit, the cannons are awesome! For the secondaries, we have heat seekers and laser guided missiles. You can really go either way, but I find that more often than not, my biggest threat is from the air, so I like to have some kind of heat seekers, and these are always fun when going against other Little Birds. Now, I must note, this is actually something that applies to the attack helicopter, so hopefully you're looking into both of them, because this will help out both of them. If you're trying to help take out other helicopters, the best thing that you can do is not to shoot the heat seekers from far away just when you get a lock on. What you do is you get in real close. You get in real close, like to the point where you can see the actual guy in the helicopter. And what ends up happening is if you can get that kind of close to whatever your target is, and then you fire the heat seekers, it doesn't matter if they flare, it doesn't matter if the ECM jam. Well, I mean, yeah, okay. So then you will be able to get through all of those and be able to still hit them with your heat seekers, and with both of them, I might add. So that is absolutely awesome, and that's an advantage that you actually get with a scout helicopter over the attack helicopter, is that because you don't have the rockets, you have cannons instead. After you get through the heat seekers, and again, that trick works on both the attack helicopter and the scout helicopter, but what's better about the Little Bird in this situation is as the enemy starts to tilt and like have to struggle because they got critical hit now and they're trying to like get up, is now instead of trying to have rockets try to hit the enemy, now you have cannons. You have freaking cannons to shoot at the enemy. So it's much easier to take out other Little Birds, other attack helicopters that way. And again, when you have 2 people repairing you, God, you can be such a fortress in the sky. But let's go ahead and move on to how you would defend yourself. Again, we can see you have the IR flares, the fire extinguisher, and the ECM jammer. Again, I always go for the ECM jammer. That's just my preference, and through my experience being the best one. But let's go ahead and look at as well with the upgrades. Again, you have the gyro stabilizers, the air radar, stealth coating, a proximity scanner, again to scan the area around your vehicle to remove enemy movement, and then you have a belt feeder to decrease those reload times. I want to go ahead and make a nice side note here for that belt feeder. The belt feeder actually doesn't, in my opinion, I don't really care for it because you still have to worry about actually getting the magazines of ammo to use. So for me, I don't really care about the reload times. I really don't have much to worry there. So what I would probably use is the gyro stabilizers, which is going to help restabilize the vehicle after taking critical hits and stuff like that, or possibly stealth coating or proximity scanner. It really just depends on what you like to try to focus on. I tend to find that because of the way that the new system works for anti-air rocket launchers, there seems to be a lot more engineers running around with them, or just getting really good with wire-guided rockets and stuff like that. So the gyro stabilizers really help me out, whether I'm by myself or I actually have friends helping me out. So again, I highly suggest you try out those cannons once you get them. Heat seekers or laser guided, really just your preference, and then again for the upgrades is kind of just whatever your preference is. So hopefully you guys enjoy the Little Bird as much as I do. You can have a hell of a good time when playing with your friends, but let's go ahead and move on to the next vehicle. Alrighty, so here we are checking out the attack jet. So we're looking at the air-to-ground jet. So The purpose of this jet is, again, to make sure that you are attacking ground targets. You can do that with a primary or a secondary weapon, whichever one you choose. But we'll see in a second here that you only really have one choice for your primary, so I guess you'll kind of, you know, pigeonholed right there. But this jet is also going to be able to have some kind of air-to-air targeting, but it's not really the purpose of this actual vehicle. So let's go ahead and move right on into the actual unlocks, because to be frank, I'm not very good at it, so I dare not give you any kind of suggestions on how to fly either of the jets. So I'm just going to go ahead and just try to educate you guys on what you actually have. So for your primary, you only have a 30mm Gauss cannon, which is basically a Gatling cannon, but it is very effective against heavily armored targets, so don't be afraid to go ahead and hit tanks and LAVs and all that stuff. For your secondary, you get heat seekers, laser guided missiles, the Hydra rockets, a TV missile, or a JDAM bomb. Now, I've never actually seen a JDAM bomb go off except for once in a YouTube video, but you know what? I'm assuming it looked pretty massive, so I'm going to assume not like that. Don't get your mind out of the gutter. That's just dirty. That's just dirty. But that being said, I've used TV missiles before, very powerful, and Hydra rockets are, yeah, they're pretty good. They're pretty good at taking out, you know, all kinds of different armors like that. So I would highly suggest using those as well. But again, I don't really use jets, so I don't really know. Just, you know, try them out, try whatever you want. Countermeasures, again, we have the flares, the fire extinguishers, and the ECM jammer. I'm assuming I'd probably like the ECM jammer, but I really don't have any idea, because jets are going to obviously play a little bit differently than anything else. We have optics on it, ironically, for when you are in your secondary. We have zoom optics, infrared, and the thermal. I have no idea what I would prefer. Probably thermal, I guess, at this, because you would want to try to bomb from decent range. I don't know. We'll see. And then the upgrades. You have the gyro stabilizers, your stealth coating, proximity scanner, and belt feeder. This is probably something that I'd probably use more proximity scanner or maybe a stealth coating for. I find that when I have used jets, that when I have gotten hit by like just one rocket and not you know, two, a two will set you over the limit every single time, pretty much. If you get hit with 2 rockets, your jet's pretty much done. So if you get hit with one of them, there's really no need to have you know, the ability to be stabilized again. And I mean, stealth coating is a good choice. Proximity scanner, good choice for finding ground targets. So that's kind of just kind of spitballing here about what I'd probably end up using if I ever actually got halfway good at them. So. But yeah, that's kind of my summary on the attack jets. I hope that gives you guys an idea of exactly what you can use. And let's go ahead and move on to the stealth jet. Alright, so here we are talking about the stealth jet. Now, the stealth jet is meant to be the air-to-air jet that we have here in Battlefield 4, and they actually have quite a bit more selection when it comes to their primaries. Again, I'm not very good with the jets. It's something I went over with in the attack jet section, so I'm not going to try to give you guys any bit of a suggestion, because honestly, I'd just be doing you guys a disservice. So I'm just going to go ahead and go over the unlocks and probably talk about what I might use or what I'm curious about using and that kind of stuff, so you get an idea. For your primaries, you have a 20, a 25, and a 30mm cannon. Basically, the 20mm cannon is going to have the highest fire rate. Your 30mm cannon is going to have the lowest fire rate, but there's still a chain gun, so it's still going to be relatively powerful. And that the difference in fire rate is going to be broken up with basically just having a more powerful attack per round. So choose what you want. I'm assuming a 30mm cannon would be my preference, just because I like to make sure that I can take out any target on the ground, but who freaking knows? I know I don't, because I haven't played the game. If you have any suggestions here, if I find any, you know, quick little snippets from some people who can prove that they're actually really good at these stealth jets, feel free to message me, and I'll pop this into a little annotation maybe here. We can actually help some people out. Let's see, going on to the secondaries, we have heat seekers, passive radar rockets, laser guided rockets, and active radar rockets. So I'm assuming since it's air-to-air, I'd probably have heat seekers. If I wanted to do ground targets, I'd probably go for laser guided or active radar rockets. But who knows? You know, I mean, I guess you could probably do you know, pretty much any of these. It'd be a pretty good mix. So. Moving on to countermeasures, we have the IR flares, fire extinguishers, and ECM jammer. Again, you can kind of choose whichever one you want. I'm assuming I'd probably go for the ECM jammer. And then the upgrades, we have the gyro stabilizers, stealth coating, proximity scanner, and the belt feeder. I don't know, for this one I'd probably go for stealth coating. Going against air-to-air is going to really help against those lock-ons, and also just getting away from all those IGLAs and the other anti-air vehicles that are out there, or anti-air rocket launchers that are out there. So who knows? Again, I'm not very good with the jets, so I can't really tell you what works and for what. But if you guys are really good with the jets and you want to go ahead and throw me some tips, I'll leave a little bit of a section here of just quiet time where maybe I can put up some good stuff. And I'm gonna, again, I link guides to every single one of these vehicles if you have anything to suggest. So go ahead and throw those at me, and maybe we can educate just a few more people on how to do better at these vehicles. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Fast Attack Boat section for the vehicles in Battlefield 4. So let's go ahead and jump right in, but I do have some tips that I want to give you guys about the Fast Attack Boat. So if you're going to be playing as a Fast Attack Boat, you really got to understand that on pretty much every map except for maybe Shanghai, you are a very valuable vehicle. Specifically, I want to be speaking about Parasol Storm. Parasol Storm is a map where the Fast Attack Boats basically decide who is going to win the match. If you end up having 2 or 3 fast attack boats that are well equipped with a team of people that are working really well together, you're going to demolish the enemy team quite easily, because almost every single point it can be covered quite well by the fast attack boat. So make sure if you're in it, you're supported by some friends, especially if in voice chat. That would be ideal. The next tip I want to give you guys is that if you actually hit the F5 or F6 keys in the fast attack boat, you will actually jump off onto the rear. If you look at the picture of the rear, you can see there's a jet ski on there, and you'll actually be automatically deployed onto your own little jet ski that you can take and drive up into the water. So that doesn't have a limitation. Everyone on the boat can do that. So that's a cool little fun fact that you can have there. If you ever spawn on a friend and you just want a little jet ski, you want to go your own way, you can just go ahead and hit F5 or F6, and it'll go ahead and throw you on a jet ski to go your own way. Now, if you're going against the attack boat, a piece of advice that I want to give you guys is to attack towards the rear of the attack boat. If you look on the picture where we look towards the top of the attack boat, you can actually see that the enemy, or your enemies, will be quite exposed. The ones that are on the minigun, and then there's one guy in the very back. That, again, I'll stress out as a little aside here, that if you're going to be in the rear of the attack boat, make sure that you are repairing the attack boat as an engineer. There's nothing worse than having someone waste a spot that is so essential to keeping vehicles alive. But you can attack, going back to what I was saying, you can attack the very attack of the boat, the back of the boat, and if you have any kind of splash damage on it, it'll not only do consistent damage to the boat, but any splash damage will actually damage the players that are sitting right there. So that's probably the best way to kill them, especially if you're like a little bird, with cannons, shoot right there, or a helicopter with rockets, shoot right towards the back of the boat, and that's going to do the most damage. So that's my piece of advice there. But let's go ahead and move right on into the attachments. So we have your primaries of a 25mm and a 30mm cannon, along with the burst cannon. So the burst cannon is actually the 25mm cannon, but instead it's going to be designed to be in burst. What's really great about the burst over the normal cannon is because it is a burst, it's going to fire much faster, allowing you to be able to hit all of your attacks a lot quicker. So I prefer to use the burst cannon once I actually get it. But moving on to secondary, you have the laser guided, the TV missiles, the tow missiles, the Zuni rockets, and the passive radar. Personally, what I use for this one is I would use the tow missile because it is wire guided. So what I can do is I can fire it and immediately switch back to my burst cannon and get those shots off as soon as they are available as well, while still being able to guide it. The TV missile and the laser guided require you to be constantly locked on, which means that you cannot switch away. The TV missile requires you to be in a little camera, and thusly you're not driving the boat anymore, leaving yourself completely exposed. The Zuni rockets are completely unguided, so once you let them go, they're just gone, and they're not super great. Unless you're going against maybe like land targets or something like that. So, and then the passive radar are good, but they're meant to go against air vehicles, and the actual fast attack boat, in my opinion, is not much of an anti-air vehicle. So I usually just go for for the tow missile. Moving on to the countermeasures, again we have the IR smokes, the smoke screen, the fire extinguisher, and the active protection. Again, I always just go for the active protection. I feel like it's the best way to deal with any incoming fire. I don't have to worry about if it being locked down or not. I can always make sure I am dodging it. And then the optics, you have the zoom optics, infrared, and the thermal optics. I played around with the thermal optics. They are pretty good, but I usually just stick to the zoom optics because that's what I know best. And then for the upgrades, we have maintenance, thermal camo, belt feeder, proximity scanner, and air radar. Again, air radar to me is a little bit redundant. It's not really meant to be an anti-air vehicle. I actually choose to do the proc scanner or the thermal camo just because the proc scanner is really nice to be able to scan around me and see if there's any other attack boats or anything like that that I have to worry about. That's going to be a major advantage to me when dealing with all these things. So, but yeah, those are my little pieces of advice on the attack boat. I hope you guys enjoyed that little jet ski trick for you. And yeah, let's go on to the next section. Alrighty, so we're gonna be here in the what I've labeled as the DLC/map section. So what you need to know here is that this isn't going to be, I mean, I'm going to have a little bit of education here in the beginning, but I'm going to be doing most of the linking here. I have a bunch of guides that I come out where I actually break down the individual maps themselves. I already have one for Gulmid Railway and Rogue Transmission. I plan on doing the Gulmid Railway one over again. Now that I have kind of a new style going for it. But I'm going to be doing consistent map guides, so check back here if you want to see if I updated, or just go ahead and subscribe to the channel, and I will have them up and running the day you want to see them, or the day they come out. You can go ahead and try and check them out then. So, but let's go ahead and talk about the DLC. So for the DLC, we know for a fact that we have obviously China Rising, which has already come out. We have Second Assault, which is basically BF3 maps that are reimagined with a BF4 style and Levolution added to it. We have the third expansion pack, which is going to be Naval Strike. And obviously, just from the idea, we know that it's going to add a bunch of maps that focus around water combat. Dragon's Teeth, I personally haven't found anything about what that one is going to entail, but I'm assuming that's going to have some, or sorry, it's Dragon's Teeth. Man, am I stupid? But I'm assuming that's going to end up having something to do with more of like expansion on some of the China stuff. And then, of course, the last DLC is going to be Final Stand. And Final Stand is going to, you know, I don't know, we don't really know what's in that. Maybe it's going to have some more, I don't know, single-player stuff, I'm assuming, because the final decision you have to make, I have no idea. So, but those are the different expansion packs. If you want more information, I'm going to be doing guides on exactly what they do as they come out. So if you see that here, clickety-click on those and see those videos as they come out. So go ahead and check out that. And again, go ahead and click on the links for the maps if you want to go ahead and see those. And I should be doing links for all the DLC maps as they come out. So I'm going to leave some empty sections here for all the different maps as they come out, so you guys can click on those individual annotations. Alright, so hopefully that helps you guys out. I thank you guys for all your support if you've watched this video all the way through from beginning to end. If you haven't, then go ahead and revisit some of the other sections. I guarantee you there's tons of information in here for you to enjoy. Please don't forget to share it with your friends, and I'll see you guys next time.